Hey, IDO. Appreciate you joining us. Don't forget some great stories on our website. Story I did about Boise State. Let's see. Ashton Jeanty is not the most important person for the Broncos this week against Oregon, or perhaps for the season. The Heisman hopeful has garnered an incredible amount of national media attention. However, is he the key to victory? Read that story and more on KIDOTalkRadio.com. And 50 years ago, what is it, this week, September 8th? The world reacted to something that happened in Idaho, in Twin Falls, Idaho. Do you remember what you were doing in 1974? Take a look at those stories and more on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com. We're joined by our friend Jonathan Savage, who joins us from Fox News Radio. And every time I see AEW, I think of you. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Nice to talk to you again.
Good to have you with us here. So here we are. We're ready to go. We're post All In. What's next for AEW?
What's next for AEW? They appear to be expanding their international ambitions. They're going to do a stadium show in Australia next year, which sounds to me like a very ambitious plan. I don't know how many tickets they're going to sell in Australia. They're going to do a stadium show in Texas next year, and they're going to come back to London as well for the Forbidden Door show next weekend. But there are so many rumors that WWE is going to do a major stadium show in London next year as well. So it could be a fun year to be a British wrestling fan.
Well, all I have to say to you is, can you say Wembley, WWE?
That's the thought. Wembley, maybe early August. They're having to battle with Oasis, the rock band, who are reuniting next year for some mega shows at Wembley Stadium. So I think they're going to be doing some calendar juggling to see when Wembley might be available. But I think with AEW getting 50,000 people through Wembley this year, by 80,000 last year, WWE will probably see that as a challenge to see whether they can get even more fans through the gates of the UK's biggest stadium.
We appreciate that. We love the wrestling updates from our man Jonathan Savage from London on Fox News Radio, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So let's talk a little bit about the all-time heel Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, that's how he's seen by Ukraine, by the United States, by many other allies, and you might say that's how he's seen by the International Criminal Court as well. About 18 months ago, the International Court issued an arrest warrant against Vladimir Putin, holding him responsible for the abduction of children in Ukraine. Now, theoretically, that means that if Vladimir Putin sets foot in any of the International Criminal Court's 124 member states, that state would be obliged to detain him and surrender him to the court. Well, Vladimir Putin put that theory to the test yesterday when he landed in Mongolia. And in Mongolia, which should have arrested him, Mongolia did not arrest him. Mongolia in a tricky diplomatic situation. It says it's politically neutral. However, it is landlocked, sandwiched between China and Russia, dependent on China and Russia economically. And Mongolia had decided that those relationships with China are more important than its status as a member of the International Criminal Court. And rather than pulling out the handcuffs, they rolled out the red carpet.
Well, we're not surprised about that, Mr. Savage. Anything else you would like to share with us today?
I don't think we're surprised by that. I don't think the West is surprised by that. Russia was confident that their president would be entirely safe in Mongolia. And now the question is, will there be actions, will there be consequences for Mongolia for not arresting Vladimir Putin? Mongolia decided it's a risk it's willing to take in order to maintain its economic ties with Russia. And it'll look to South Africa, who did something similar in 2015 and failed to arrest the president of Sudan. South Africa barely got a slap on the wrist. So people will ask, what is the point of the ICC when it doesn't even have any teeth to bear?
Jonathan Savage, we appreciate you, brother, as always.
Have a good day.
Good day. All right. From London to North Carolina, Kaye Smythe joining us from Daily Caller. For some reason, and I love you because you've got that accent, you love the American South because of your man. I always want to call you Katie Smith, but Kaye Smythe joins us. Thank you for joining us.
That's okay. I've had that my whole life. And thank you so much for having me. I will be Kay Hill soon. I think that's much easier than Smythe. But, thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, no, I love this. This is like double accent day. We have Jonathan Savage and we have you, ma'am.
Well, it's an honor. You know, it's always nice to see a little bit of British representation across the pond. I think there's a lot of stuff that the States has exported over to the UK, and, you know, there's plenty of us legal immigrants that want to come over here and keep contributing, like I'm sure some of my forefathers did. Everyone's so much more welcoming here, I think, as well, compared to Britain.
Well, I'll tell you, Idaho does, having lived in North Carolina, Idaho does rival your beloved state of North Carolina when it comes to friendly people. And, you know, I think if you haven't written a book or a blog or anything about that, like the exchange of cultures, and last time we had you on, ma'am, we have the utmost respect. I told you about that old show, Green Acres, and you know, here you are, you're on the farm, you're learning, you love the barbecue, and I'm sure it's a must listen to when you talk to the locals there with y'all versus, you know, how you speak, ma'am.
Oh, absolutely. And people look at me and my fiance like we're absolutely mad, sort of like putting us together, like the accents don't make sense. And, you know, we live on a little bit of land. We have some, you know, like chickens. We do a lot of stuff in the garden. And so I usually look pretty rough when I'm out and about. And it's always just so funny to see people's reaction when they're like, what? Where are you from? And I'm just like, not here, but I like it here better. So,
I love it when you say,
thank you for welcoming me.
I love it when you say, I look pretty rough.
Oh, yeah, no, just like, that's the best thing about living out in rural America is like people, it's not that people don't care what you look like. I think there's just a sort of natural understanding of like, yeah, I've been working all morning and then I had to go outside and I had to work in the garden for 2 hours and I can't be bothered to shower yet because something else is probably going to get me all stinky at some other point today. And I love it. And I think it's great. And I think that this country is so worth protecting in all of its values and all of its freedoms. And my freedom to be able to smell like a farm most of the day is part of that. Well, I'm grateful.
And we're grateful for that the ability to express your stinkiness. So, Kaye, let's talk a little bit about your new piece in the Daily Caller. And again, when Connor told me about this, living off the grid, to me, when I hear about your life in North Carolina with the chickens and the hens and the roosters and gosh knows what else, that sounds like off the grid to me.
I mean, it's we're not quite there yet, but that would be nice eventually. And I don't know if it's so much, I think the phrase sort of living off grid, like it definitely describes the situation and the practice pretty well, but I think it does have some sort of negative connotations in today's society. Like, I mean, I know off-gridders who will they won't even go into towns, like they take it to that sort of extremity, and it's just like, well, really, it's more about understanding that we live in not necessarily unsustainable, again, in the sort of co-opted Green New Deal way of defining it, but unsustainable in terms of like everyone in America pretty much has the sort of access to stuff that like kings didn't even have access to, you know, like 100, 200 years ago. And I'm not just talking about technology. I'm talking about stuff like foods, like spices, like all of these different things that, you know, we sort of take for granted, and sort of understanding how delicate that balance is, how it revolves not just around the natural world, but our international relationships. And so sort of being able to live without necessarily depending wholly on a system that, you know, if it snaps, the statistic is, you know, we're 9 meals away from chaos, like 3 days away from chaos. If society breaks down, if something happens, if there's a natural disaster, if there's some kind of attack. So, you know, I think living off-grid is more sort of living with the understanding that I might have to take care of myself, that mummy and daddy government might not always be there to put a Band-Aid on the problem. In fact, they're probably the ones causing the problem. So, yeah, that's the sort of off-grid vibe that I'm into.
Well, like I said, and getting back to your piece in the Daily Caller that you wrote yesterday, you're talking about this movie trailer 2073. If the trailer for 2073 doesn't convince you to leave modern society, you're already lost. How compelling is this?
I mean, for me, what I kind of love about movie trailers, like anything out of mainstream sort of corporate Hollywood, is I sort of take it from not the perspective of entertainment, but very much education. And so thankfully, a lot of shows and movies like this kind of flop. So they don't really get the kind of fear that, that's really the hope of a lot of projects like this. Like, let's instill fear. I think that perpetuating a sense of hopelessness and chaos and anger and unrealistic expectations of life is pretty much all that Hollywood is good for the most part these days. And so when I saw this trailer, I'm like, I completely believe in predictive programming. I don't know that there's anyone in government or Hollywood clever enough to do it, but it sort of happens anyway as a result of entertainment. Like, even if it's not intentional, we are hardwired to, normalize behaviors of like fictional characters that would like never do stuff like that in real life. And so when I see movies like this, I just kind of think, oh, maybe I should watch this just in case there is some kind of like far-reaching plan to make this normality. Let's just see what's going on inside of the minds of these people that I sort of like have watched try to do stuff well. And like, I don't know if you've ever been to California, but like they just don't do stuff well there, particularly running a functional civilization. And so, yeah, this movie 2073, I don't think it's going to be a great movie. I hope a lot of people don't go and see it. But for me, just watching the trailer, seeing this sort of dystopian future, and the premise being that it's all built from things that are happening right now, that kind of freaked me out. I've never seen that in entertainment before, this sort of like hypothesis of where we could go based on where we're at now from a like fictional sort of storytelling sci-fi perspective. Obviously, we've seen that in like super duper fiction, but not in a sort of like nonfiction meets science fiction. So, we've got all the stuff in this film that's like actual just news stories, like news clips, newsreels, trends that are happening in society right now. And the writer and the director, I don't know if it's the same person because I didn't want to it sucks because I didn't want to promote the film, but I wanted to promote the sort of problems within it. But the writer-director, I guess, is sort of seeing this dystopian, awful future if we carry on the track we're at now. But largely, actually, I think focusing on issues of like freedom of speech and then sort of like positioning it in a way that all liberals seem to do these days, which is like conservatives are anti-freedom of speech. And like, I'd love to sort of half quote Rob Schneider here and say like, well, no, we're not anti-freedom of speech. We're completely pro all freedom of speech, even particularly the speech that you guys don't like that you're trying to get rid of. So, I think it's interesting that there is such a dystopian perspective on the place we're at now and where it could go from, mainstream corporate Hollywood, if you will. But they seem to be blaming all of the people who are trying to stand up to stop that potential future. So it didn't really make sense to me. And that's where I was like, okay, yeah. Like, if you believe that this is the case, then you're already lost because you're going to keep putting your hope in people like Kamala Harris. And I don't know, my life isn't better now than it was 4 years ago. Is yours?
I'd say not. Kaye Smythe joining us from the Daily Caller, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So I'm going to hold you responsible for North Carolina. What's up with North Carolina? People say it could go for Kamala, whatever her name is. You're there. You're responsible. Your thoughts on how that state goes?
I mean, everyone I know is pretty much pro-Trump, more so now with RFK sort of backing him. I think definitely since Tulsi came out in support. I'm a huge J.D. Vance fan, but he doesn't have a whole lot of name recognition down here, which I think sucks because he deserves it. Not just for, what he's done since becoming a politician, but throughout his entire career. I think that everyone I've spoken to is pretty much pro-Trump. There's like a few clusters of people who are pro-Kamala. I don't know if those are necessarily the people who would even remember to go out and vote. So it doesn't really freak me out that much. And a lot of those people are sort of looking at it and, like, let's be honest, they're all like semi-liberal women who are just like, I just don't like Trump, so I'm going to keep voting to protect my right to become so poor under this current administration. But yeah, I'm hoping it goes Trump. I think it will go Trump just because that seems to be the reigning theme. But I don't know. We all remember 2020 and how that went. So we'll see.
No, we will see on that. Kaye, anything else you'd like to say? Any predictions for the debate? How do you see that playing out, ma'am?
Oh, I would love to actually pick your brains on that. That's a great question. I think it's going to be a lot of Kamala being passive aggressive and not really answering questions and lying. But what do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think I appreciate the question back at me. I now you're putting me on the spot, but if
Sorry.
Trump, no, it's quite all right. If Trump can get in a couple shots of, well, why weren't you, there at Abbey Gate? Why didn't you help those relatives that come back? Why didn't you do this? I fear that she's going to try to be prosecutor Kamala like she was with Joe Biden, but I think that Donald Trump will be ready for her. It'll be interesting. Again, it always depends on the moderators, and if it's 5-on-1, we'll see what happens. But again, we saw the Dana Bash Love Fest. Apparently it was only 16 minutes where she answered questions. Apparently she can't do that. So I feel pretty confident that Donald Trump will be ready.
I think so too. I just don't worry about Trump at this point. He's just become so much more articulate. Like, I never thought that I would say one of the most articulate things I'd ever watched was Theo Von and Donald Trump talking about his upcoming election. But it was pretty magical to see. And I think, I think I'm just going to have to wait and see how it goes. But I have, no worries about Trump. I just want to make sure that Kamala doesn't, you know what it's like.
Well, good luck on your upcoming nuptials and enjoy the great state of North Carolina. Hopefully the hurricanes won't get you this season.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's been unseasonably quiet over the Atlantic. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, and by the way, for people that want to follow you, your handle on Twitter?
Oh, Kaysmythe. Kaye Smythe. It's just my name. That's the one benefit of having such a ridiculous name.
Well, ma'am, we appreciate you. We love to have you back, and we love your articles and your comments on X.
Thanks. Thanks so much. I love you guys, too. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day. There we go. Case 580-5436-580, KIDO. The Abbey Gate controversy continues. And did you see this thing on social media? And hopefully we'll be able to play the clip for you, where you ask Alexa, what do you think about the election? What do you think about Donald Trump? And Alexa says, I'm sorry, I cannot give you any type of political information. No, it's not Alexa. What is that? Siri. Is it Siri or Alexa? One of those. And basically what happens is that you get this clip where you ask about Vice President Harris, Kamala, and it says electing her, she would be the first woman, the first African-American woman, the first Asian woman, the first Indian woman. And it goes on in this glowing review of the vice president. Well, now it's either Apple or Amazon has decided. I think thank you, Sweet William. It's Apple with Siri, and Bo's going, see, that's why I don't like Apple. Thank you, Bo. But the idea that these things continue to shape our will, these things continue to shape our consciousness is crazy. And like I said, I marvel at people that have jumped on the digital bandwagon and they're influencers, and you have people that do hard physical labor, whether it's our friend Jerry, soon to be in Emmett from Middleton and his beautiful family, or Lee Joe, or all the other folks, Glenn, gun-toting Glenn. And then all of a sudden you have people going that I shoot videos. And when they talk about shooting videos, they can monetize that. But that's not like going to work like the rest of us do, right? And yet at 580-5436-580 KIDO, the digital media has an incredible influence on our society. has an incredible influence on how we think. It's not the be-all, end-all. It isn't. But you think to yourself, this is why we need to have critical thinking. This is not why we need to listen to talk radio. Even if we're not conservative, I will say this, and please don't tell Mrs. Miller this. We're sitting there watching Fox News last night, and I think that Jesse Waters is marginally talented. I think that it's a producer-run show. The producer tells him what to do, and he executes it flawlessly. Sean doing the Sean show. But I have to say, and it's not as if I'm going liberal. We always knew you were a closet liberal. Okay, for the sake of argument, I'm a closet liberal. However, hearing the back and forth when the libs go toe-to-toe with people, I find that more intellectually stimulating. And see, that's what we're missing in our society today, where we have people that just sit back and, again, they're on TikTok or they're on Facebook and they just believe the garbage that is emanating from there. And those people are not held accountable for the lies that they perpetrate. Now, we can go back to the Russian collusion fusion, the disinformation, where Joe Biden continues to lie, the Hunter Biden stuff, everything else. It's so important to have critical thinking skills. And that's why, as we like to say, reading is fundamental. We have, we have our blogs, and I want to thank the person that busted me last night on Twitter. You're going to love this one. I misspelled Ashton Gentry. I called it, I did it with a couple of, but I did it with mainly the right way, but then I didn't proofread my stuff. And I did it with a G, Gentry, instead of a Genty. And okay. And then I forgot I didn't give the right Idaho, Oregon score. It was 24-14. I had 24-10. And the guy ripped me on Twitter. But I'll tell you what, that person that ripped me on Twitter, rightfully so, they're not a dummy. And that's why, we have the blogs, we have the spoken word. Who knows? I mean, we're on YouTube. Who knows when that's going to go live as far as videos and such. The Godless Corporation doesn't tell me anything, but it's so important. And I know you know this. It's to get those sources of information. Speaking of sources of information, we're going to have Mike Tracy joining us at 7 o'clock, our political insider, Mike Tracy Consulting. We're going to find out what's going on in the world of politics, both locally and nationally. A lot of people are doing stories on ranked choice voting, open primaries, that sort of thing. That's the big deal for the November elections in Idaho. Also, we're going to have the former mayor of Meridian, Idaho, Mayor Tammy, with her husband will be joining us. And she has a new book out. But not only does she have a new book out, she's going to disclose something that happened to her and her family that most people don't know about. And it became an international incident that was not reported. We'll talk about that as well. So we've got a compelling lineup. Of course, it all starts with you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. You know what they say at the old Beacon Plumbing? Stop freaking. Call the Beacon today, beaconplumbing.net. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Let's get you to work safely and on time. We have Chris in for Dave Burnett today. KIDO Talk Radio Traffic. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kevin. KIDO Talk Radio Traffic from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Eastbound I-84 at Eagle, reports of an injury crash. Use caution if you're in the area. Things are picking up a little bit in that area, so use caution as you head in this morning. Direct Orthopedic Care. For sprains, strains, and breaks, skip the ER and go direct to DOC. Drop in without an appointment to one of 5 Treasure Valley locations. Visit BoiseDoc.com to learn more. That's your traffic now on KIDO Talk.
Coming up, we'll have the Hannity Minute. Also, our clip of the day from the Reverend Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham, of course, one of the most devout religious Christian leaders in the nation, basically saying to Hamas, if Trump wins, we're going to kill you. By the way, I thought that was Franklin Graham. No, this is Lindsey Graham. A big difference between the senator from South Carolina and, of course, the minister from North Carolina. Here he is with our own Sean Hannity. Remember, Sean will be previewing his exclusive town hall tonight with President Trump. And it's good to see that it'll be a town hall, so there'll be people there and everybody will be, going back and forth and all sorts of things, as opposed to just Sean and the Donald, which we've seen more and more and more. Not that we don't like that. However, it's nice to have the folks, because really it's the folks that create the magic.
Well, President Trump had the Iranians near bankruptcy, and Harris and Biden allowed the Iranians, they ignored the sanctions allowed them to take in billions and billions of dollars, which got them rich, which helped them fund these proxy wars, Hamas out of Gaza, Hezbollah out of Lebanon, the Houthi rebels, and then they're even firing missiles into Israel themselves. But Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would not participate in their retaliation, which to me has abdicated America's role as the leader of liberty and freedom around the world. Iran cannot be allowed to not only fight the proxy wars, but get rewarded financially by an American administration the way they have been.
Let's look and break down what you just said. The Houthis attack our allies in the United Arab Emirates. We do nothing to help them. The Iranians send missiles toward Saudi Arabian oil fields. We do nothing really to help. We've lost deterrence. Nobody is afraid of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. What did Donald Trump do? He went to maximum economic pressure. He put Iran in an economic box. And when he heard that Soleimani, their Iranian Revolutionary Guard leader, was plotting to kill Americans in Iraq, he blew him up. Now, what is Biden doing? Charging Sinwar with crimes in an American court. We're not fighting a crime here. We're fighting a war. Sinwar could care less about being indicted by Garland. Sinwar, your days are numbered, pal. We're not going to indict you. We're going to kill you.
You mentioned Miriam Adelson. I knew her.
And there we have it. Donald Trump's biggest advocates, Sean Hannity and Senator Lindsey Graham, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Of course, yesterday was a cringy day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What's that, Sweet William? We need to get Jim Byrne on from Pittsburgh. You're right. We'll reach out to him. Hopefully we can get him on this week. Jim Byrne, of course, the former Democratic state chairman of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, former mayor of Midvale, Pennsylvania, and, of course, just a great guy. A Democrat, a conservative Democrat who we have the utmost respect for. So we'll see if we can get Jim on. Of course, Jim doesn't mean that he's going to roll over. Jim will be an advocate for his side. He'll give us the scene from Pittsburgh where, get this, if you didn't see the cringy video last night, Joe Biden kissed the vice president on the forehead. He said, "Come here, baby." That's the problem, with all due respect to the millennials and to our friends of the Gen Z. They've been raised to be too politically correct, and that's not a slight. It's great because, of course, the Jerry Seinfeld and Alan Alda and everybody else, we've washed ourselves of the toxic masculinity, and most of us, like Kevin Miller, are pretend men. But there's nothing more appealing than Joe Biden in his 80s going up to her in her 60s and going, "Hey, baby, how's about a kiss?" And for all our young and not so young ladies that are repelled by that, I'm sorry, but I hope for some people it made you laugh. But I saw that, and who does that? I mean, you talk about the glass ceiling or sexism or anything else, and Joe Biden is kissing her. No, not on the lips, Sweet William, but he's giving her a big smooch on the forehead like, "You're a good little vice president. You're a good little vice president." Before we get to the Hannity update at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, let's see if we can wake you up with this. This is truly, once again, one of the must-watches every day. The White House press briefing where you have Karine Jean-Pierre going toe-to-toe with Peter Doocy of Fox News. And what Peter was talking about was the unique accent of the vice president. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. Y'all better thank a union worker for your 5-day work week. Of course, maybe 5-day work week for some people, like if you drive a bread truck. I met a guy once when we're out on location. We have to meet people. He was a bread truck. I go, "Yo, what's up, the bread man?" And he goes, "Yeah, Kevin Miller. I'm the bread man. I bring the bread to the store." And I believe he was working for the bakery Franz, which are Franz, whatever it is. They have good bread. I like the wheat. Anyway, so he's not the wheat bread man. He's just the bread man. And look, if you're a bread man, and that's not a bad gig to get, I've often wondered what I would do. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. What would you do if you weren't here? I go, well, maybe I'd drive a bread truck if I could get it. But, driving, we take that for granted. You have to have like a black belt in jiu-jitsu to be driving around here. with the craziness and everything else. But I was thinking the ideal job would be I drive a bread truck. No, not a big bread truck, but the little minivan bread trucks. And I would drive the bread truck and I would listen to the radio and it would be a wonderful life. But then when you're done driving the bread truck or stocking the shelves or facing them, as they call it at Albertsons and Fred Meyer, your day is done. You don't take your job home with you. You don't have to do this, that, the other. You don't have to check on things. It's not a bad gig to have. And, there's nothing wrong with that. And you kind of just look at things and, everything is in the proper perspective. But I go back to the vice president and just the just insane things. We had that yesterday where she was, with the dialogue and everything else. And, y'all better thank a union member. Okay. By the way, no one can find out whether or not she ever worked at McDonald's. No one has found out whether or not they haven't fact-checked. Remember, they fact-checked everything that Donald Trump has done. But we can't find out whether or not she ever worked at McDonald's. Now, McDonald's, that's a great gig to have. Why would you lie about that? Or to quote Jesse Waters last night, nobody remembers her salting the fries. So, you think about these things. That whole accent thing. Well, anyway, let me get back to this. And no, thankfully, this show is not a video show, so we won't be showing you the photo or the video of Joe giving her a big smooch. However, let's go to Peter Ducey talking to Karine Jean-Pierre about y'all gonna do this, y'all gonna do that, y'all this. You better thank a union worker.
Topic. Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a southern accent?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
I mean, this is...
She was talking about unions in Detroit using one tone of voice.
Is this something that
same
you think...
line...
Okay, Peter.
That she used the same line in Pittsburgh, and it sounded like she at least had some kind of a southern drawl.
Do you hear the question that you're... do you think Americans seriously think that this is an important question? They care... You know what they care about? They care about the economy. They care about lowering costs. They care about health care. That's what Americans care about.
So
that's what they want to hear.
This is something...
They care about. Your colleague just asked me about what basically we talked about, went back and forth about democracy and freedom. That's what they care about. I'm not even going to entertain some question about the president. It's just hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
Well, but hearing it is...
The question I'm talking about, the questions is just insane.
Is that how she talks in meetings?
I'm just Peter. We're moving on. We're still moving on. Go ahead, Anita.
By the way, as we were looking at that, this is again a clip that is gaining a lot of popularity. This is Kamala in Pittsburgh and Detroit. Let's see if you can hear the difference.
Because what we know, sick leave, thank unions for paid family leave, thank unions for your vacation time.
You better thank a union. It's just amazing when you think about the same dialogue, the same to this.
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Because what we know...
There we...
You better thank...
All right, we're going to thank her some other time. And so you have this weird dialect that, again, in Detroit and again in Pittsburgh, it's the same thing. Do Americans really want that? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they go, look, Trump has to win. Trump has to win. And I agree with them on that, just based on that. But again, it comes down to stupidity over common sense. The stupidity over common sense, that is what we're fighting. More on that in a minute. Remember, Sean Hannity today at 1, right after Clay and Buck on KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio. Your morning cup of Sean. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
They ever got a hold of the Senate, they would eliminate the filibuster. They would do court packing, and they'd probably give, they'd probably give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, because that's all the Democrats ever care about. You really want to see the corporate tax rate, the largest tax increase in American history? Raising the corporate tax rate, raising the tax on stock buybacks, raising big companies' corporate taxes, small business taxes, taxes on income in each individual company where they operate rather than on their global profits overall, going with a global minimum tax to match what the rest of the world is doing and doubling that rate. And that's insane.
The conservative underground meets later today on the Sean Hannity Show.
This is getting out of control. Our government is sinking $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. That's right, $1 trillion every 100 days. Do you want to bail the government out of debt? I didn't think so. I know I sure don't. This is Linda, and when I worry about the national debt, I turn to safe haven assets like gold and silver. And that's why we partnered with the highest rated gold company, Goldco. They have earned over 5,000 five-star reviews from tens of thousands of happy customers who diversified their savings with gold and silver. Today, Goldco is offering you up to 8 years in free IRA fees plus 8% instant match in bonus silver with a qualified account. Call 855-815-GOLD for free IRA fees, bonus silver, free gold, and silver info kit. What are you waiting for? Safeguard your money with physical gold and silver before it's too late. That's what I did. Call 855-815-GOLD, 855-815-GOLD. That's 855-815-GOLD.
Thank you very much, Linda. Remember, you catch Linda and Sean at 1, then Lars Larson right after that at 4. We love the big Lars. Had him on yesterday. If you missed it, you can always check him out on our podcast or on the website, KIDOTalkRadio.com. You can catch our exclusive weekly interview with Lars Larson usually every Monday. Yesterday it was Tuesday because of the holiday. But we do appreciate Lars and love the podcast, and thank you all for downloading it. We move on. The big story that some people covered initially, and I suppose it's tough, especially when we can't breathe the air. By the way, if you're listening anywhere else and you're thinking about moving to Idaho, don't. The air here is horrible. It is just horrible. When you think about just the air here in Idaho. Of course, we don't really have a reason why it's bad. Of course, it's the fires, and Joe Biden doesn't care about it. The federal government doesn't care about it. Nobody else cares about it. We care about it, however, and that's just another reason why not to move to Idaho. I do want to tell you one thing that we are going to get to next, and this is Big City Coffee versus Boise State, a true David and Goliath. Embroiled in a lawsuit, heartbroken, Boise restaurant closes. This new one will open. Big City Coffee has closed its downtown Boise restaurant in the Linen District. And they're going to have some other people doing that. That's a shame when you think about Big City Coffee and what it meant. Its ongoing lawsuit against Boise State. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Our friend Mike Tracy will join us. But getting back to this sad story about Big City Coffee. We will give proper attribution to Michael Deeds, who not a fan of us. We're really not a fan of his. After appearing to close temporarily, a longtime Boise restaurant involved in a high-profile lawsuit has made the change permanent. Big City Coffee and Cafe, which shuttered August 11th on West Grove, will be replaced by another familiar Java brand, Cafina. Both businesses announced the news online. The rebooted location, known as Cafina Kitchen, is slated to debut on Friday. The new eatery will serve breakfast and lunch, blah, 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 that include Big City favorites on the menu. Cafina promised on social media. On Big City's Facebook page, owner Sarah Fenley wrote in a goodbye message that she had the time of my life after 24 years. Big City is now gone forever, Fenley said, but I am taking a break. My heart is broken today, she added on Big City's website. I am filled with the messages of love and the calls of love and support. Thank you. Weeks ago, Big City were greeted by signs on the door indicating that it was closed until September because of the road construction. Thank you, Mayor McLean. But Big City noted online that the closure also was because of outside circumstances. Well, we all know what the outside circumstances was. It was the decision by Boise State to say that Big City, because we have the woke students. Remember, because this radio station and Kevin Miller have been involved in litigation, I'll say this, in my opinion, this is my opinion, which I believe is still covered by the First Amendment, even in Idaho. So we had a bunch of woke students that didn't support the police, a bunch of entitled little brats deciding that Big City wasn't going to be there anymore. Don't support Big City because they dared support the police. I wonder how many of those slappies, those entitled little wokeettes, what are they going to do when they need to call the police? Are they going to defund the police then? And of course, Boise State, the university administration showing the spine of an eel, according to court documents and public records. And again, in my opinion, they decided, well, Big City, time for you to go. Never mind. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a local coffee shop in the student union building at Boise State. And the trial continues. The Boise business sued Boise State in October, $10 million court claim. I hope she gets it. Of course, the university will continue to appeal to try to bleed out this young lady. But it's sad that this local business is out because we have people that are ruined by the woke. And it would have been nice if the university that says they represent everybody, that we pay money to support, that we pay their salaries, would have stood up for Big City Coffee. We will remember you, Big City Coffee. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather. Weather, high today of 89, low tonight of 59, high tomorrow 95. Traffic, our man Chris in on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kevin. KIDO Talk Radio traffic from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Eastbound I-84 at Garrity Boulevard all the way back to Karcher. It's backed up. Use caution as you head in, and we're seeing some traffic build up at I-84 in Eagle Road. Tired of the daily grind? Idaho CDL training can help individuals and businesses excel in various CDL industries. With flexible schedules and expert instruction, call 208-258-3515 to get on the road to success. That's your traffic now on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Coming up, the man, the myth, the legend, our great friend Mike Tracy will join us. We'll get the latest political insight on what's happening throughout not only the state of Idaho, but the countdown. What is it, 61 days? We heard from Fox News Radio just moments ago. 61 days, and then it starts all over again, right? The insanity, the election season. Big news coming out of Idaho, the open primary, ranked choice voting. What will happen? Will the fissures within the Republican Party doom us to ranked choice voting? Those stories and more next with me, Kevin Miller, and our great friend Mike Tracy, KIDO Talk Radio. 6580 KIDO, and our great friend, the political insider, Mike Tracy, joins us now for his weekly session. Mike, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Kevin. It's good to visit with you and talk Idaho politics, national politics, and even throw some foreign affairs in there once in a while.
Well, we look forward to that, the multi-talented Mike Tracy. Now, Mike, I got a good one for you that we didn't go over in our pre-show meeting. However, you do a lot of work. You help people with issues. You help people with campaigns. You're a political insider. You've been at this for, over 50 years or 50 years, sir?
Well, April was 50 years, and I'm happy to celebrate the history of broadcasting with our good friend Art, who has really done a yeoman's work on Idaho's broadcast industry, and especially focusing in on KIDO and how it was, if I remember correctly, the first broadcast operation in the state, and it was started by a group of students at Boise High School. So quite the history of a station that you work at, and all the little filters and all the things that are really interesting about broadcasting to me and to you. Art's got it all in there, and I've been very impressed with what he's done with unlimited resources. Just a lot of heart and a lot of love of it for him, and that's what makes it go.
No, we like our friend Art Gregory writing the book KIDO Radio. But Mike, if people want to get a hold of you, what can they do as far as getting some consulting, political consulting, or anything else?
Yeah, they can call me anytime at 208-863-3940, 208-863-3940. and I'll be happy to talk to him anytime. And I love working in all areas. I've done a lot of political, but I've also done a lot of commercial work, and I've done a lot of association and organizational, public relations, advertising, the whole shebang that any agency would do. So, I love working with Idaho groups. I love working with Idaho companies, and so it's always, it doesn't matter the size of the business. They're all fun to work with, and I just love working with people and helping them get their companies or their organizations put together. And right now, I just wanted to give you a heads up. There's an upcoming concert from our friends out in Kuna, and they are doing a community benefit concert for the Save Our Ground effort in Kuna that's working to stop a solar project out on that ground, and they've been very successful so far. But there's an upcoming benefit concert September 14th from 6 to midnight, and all those proceeds go to helping this group essentially fight off this very large national, international company from just kind of force feeding this solar project on these folks, and they've successfully stopped it so far. But one of the things that you got to do is you got to stay vigilant, I should say, and they've done that, and they've stayed on it really tightly, and I'm very impressed with these guys. They knew that it needed to be a grassroots effort, and they've done a great job with it. So that concert again is September 14th from 6 p.m. to midnight in Kuna at the rodeo grounds out there, the Crooked 8 rodeo grounds in Kuna.
Okay.
And if they want more details, they can get them online.
All right, Mike, we appreciate that. Let's get to the Big Skinny. Do you remember what you were doing 50 years ago in Idaho and why that is so significant?
Sure. I was up at the University of Idaho in Moscow, and there were 2 radio stations on campus.
No. What happened 50 years ago in Twin Falls, Idaho?
In Twin Falls, Idaho, are you talking about
yes, sir.
Our friend who jumped the canyon?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, I remember that. It was definitely news, and I wasn't the news director. I don't believe I was the news director yet for the radio station, but I remember the event very well. When, his name slips my mind right now. You're showing my age.
Oh no, Evel Knievel.
Evel Knievel. Yeah, there it is. And as you get older, these things slip away. But anyway, he was quite the showman, and he was going to jump in a rocket. A rocket car or a rocket motorcycle jumped the Twin Falls Canyon, and he shot over that and didn't hit his mark, but his motorcycle crashed into the other side of on the other side of the canyon, and he parachuted out of it and was saved. He got busted up again, and Evel Knievel got busted up so many times on his jumps. He had broken nearly every bone in his body at least once, and some multiple times. But he was quite the showman, would wear flashy outfits like Elvis Presley.
No, he did, Mike. And by the way, sorry to interrupt our friend Mike Tracy. And again, I apologize for throwing this on you, but I mean, 50 years later, people still remember they actually had a motorcycle parade in Twin Falls. And again, Mike, you forgot more about this state than I'll ever know, than most of us will ever know. That was such a huge deal. You had, and again, we're dating ourselves here when we say ABC News, Wide World of Sports, Howard Cosell, all coming to Twin Falls. You can still see the mound there, literally.
Oh, yeah.
And you as an Idahoan, can you reflect back on just the legacy of that, sir? I know you were rolling on that, and I just wanted to clarify my question for you.
Yeah. It made a huge impact. I mean, up until that point, Idaho was known for its potatoes, and rightly so. Idaho has always been the potato state, but he put he put Idaho on the map in a way that it had never been before. And as you said, with sports, with the other thing that celebrities knew Idaho for was Sun Valley, but there wasn't much else that people knew Idaho for. Idaho was only about 700,000 people in population in 1974, and so when I was doing news, I saw this stuff starting to come over the teletype, and it was pretty amazing to see how it unfolded and how the networks and especially all the local media and regional media covered it. I mean, everybody was there, but you're right. Howard Cosell, ABC News. It was quite the show, and it took a great showman to put something like that on, and he was a great showman, and he spent a lot of time in the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming area over his career.
Our great friend Mike Tracy joining us. By the way, we have an article on our website about this. Okay, Mike, I apologize. We're going to talk nothing but politics next. Can you hang with us, sir?
No problem. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mike Tracy. Again, a lot going on. Harris versus Trump, debate prep. We're going to talk to a man that's been in the Senate, worked with the Senate, worked on national, local, statewide campaigns for years. What to expect? Find out next from our friend Mike Tracy on KIDO Talk Radio. Guy that has so much experience in Idaho. You want to know what it was like in 1974. Mike Tracy, 61 days before the big enchilada. Everybody's getting ready for the big debate. As someone who has worked in politics at the highest level, what should we be looking out for between the Trump-Harris debate, sir?
Well, I would say that it's got to be, people need to hear some solid things from her, because there has been no solid policy framework put out there on any election. We know what Donald Trump will do. He did it for 4 years, and it made the country a better place. My own personal economic welfare, as well as most Idahoans, has been negatively affected by the Biden-Harris ticket. So we know that Harris is going to go the wrong way, and Trump will go the right way for individuals like myself, small businesses like mine, and every Idahoan that's out there trying to earn a wage and pay for their family and pay for school and all of that. That's the thing that we need to be looking for, is how are their policies and this debate, how will their policies help lower the cost of food, lower the cost of gasoline? And, we know how the cost of gasoline is going to go down. Drill, baby, drill. Trump has talked about it over and over and over again and did it. And the highest I think I paid for gasoline when he was in office was $2.05 a gallon until Biden was elected, and then it started going up immediately. And by the time he was sworn in 3 months later, 2 months later after the November election, gas prices had risen from $2.05 to $2.36, and that was without even implementing a single Biden policy, because the market was already in an uproar because they knew what Biden and Harris were going to do.
And yet, indeed, we have everything tied up allegedly, which is just strange. People seem to be voting against their economic interests.
Yeah, that's always been a mystery to me. It's kind of like our Jewish friends, and I have a lot of Jewish friends, not a lot, but I have some here in the Treasure Valley, and I've asked them in the past, why do you continue to vote Democrat against your own best interest? And they never have a good answer for it, because they like the person on all the other issues. Well, to me, there's only one issue for them, and it should be protecting the Jewish people in America and across the pond in Israel. And I'm just really moved by the fact that a lot of Democrats have come across, and finally they're starting to see the light that things aren't so good under a Harris administration. And we know what she would do, because she's been doing it the last 4 years and has already claimed credit for the decisions that Biden has made.
Yeah, and then we have the eerie ghost of Joe Biden, who still is the president.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been watching some national news the last couple of days, and they continue to talk about what Harris doesn't do, but Joe Biden's doing even less. If you can imagine that, he wasn't doing much to start with, but now, ghost is a good word. I mean, he is barely his former self, which was not much. And everything that he did were bad decisions, especially on foreign policy. His foreign policy has been a disaster, and it's evidenced by what's going on in Israel and Gaza. It's evidenced by what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. It's evidenced by what's going on with China taking. I mean, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but a former employee of Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, she was charged with aiding and abetting China, and she worked for Hochul and made millions of dollars for her and her family. And that to me that's a red flag when we see that kind of stuff happening. And she's not the first person who has hired somebody. Our friend Eric Swalwell in California was dating a girl who was feeding intel back to China. So, they've infiltrated the United States pretty successfully, and Joe Biden's done nothing to separate himself from that, and neither has Harris.
Well, and our great friend Mike Tracy joining us here, breaking down the big political stuff. And you're right about that. That's something that we haven't gotten to. But here you have an assistant to the governor of New York now is accused of being a Chinese agent, a Chinese spy. Mike, back 10 years ago, that would be big news. Now it's just ho-hum and back to our TikTok.
Yeah, it is. And, I remember when we started doing more China outreach when I was in Senator Craig's office, we were careful not to go too far with that. And we always had our guard up because we knew China was a lot like Russia. There was only so much trust, but we had already placed so much in the way of trade and letting them build their trade on our backs. And we started doing that back in the 90s, 30 years ago. But by the time I went to work for Senator Craig in 1996, the things were starting to move forward on opening the United States market for China. And with 1.4 billion people and lots of resources and a willingness to make everybody march in lockstep to help their economy, whether they liked it or not, the Chinese Communist Party made sure that everybody was doing exactly what they needed to accommodate the United States. And now they've gotten themselves into a position with Joe Biden's help and Harris's help to just really build their military up, to build up their economic strength. Everything is now that we do with China is helping them build their military. We can't have that. We got to make sure that doesn't continue to happen.
Our great friend Mike Tracy joining us. So, Mike, obviously we're gearing up. Labor Day is over. It's the sprint season. The big issue, obviously, in Idaho is ranked choice voting, the open primary. Your thoughts on how that plays out in 61 days?
Well, I met with a group recently, and they go by the Idaho Fair Elections, and you might have been on their website. But if you go on to IdahoFairElections.com, you can see everything about ranked choice voting that their canvassers, the people that were out there getting signatures, about a lot of the myths that they've been spreading. They're claiming that ranked choice voting reduces voter participation. That's not true. There's independent voters who didn't vote in primary elections. They could win every time. I mean, there's so much information on this website. You really need to go on and look at it. And it's really pretty balanced on, what has happened with ranked choice voting in other states like California and Alaska, and who opposes our ranked choice voting in Idaho. And really, our RCV ranked choice voting is bad for everyone, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. And you can go online and see why those things are. It's expensive, time-consuming, and it would really change the very function of voting in the state of Idaho and reducing choice of candidates based on this new system. And California has shown just one of the many mistakes they've made going with ranked choice voting. The primaries still are the best way to go, with ranked choice voting not being a part of any of that.
And yet we're going to have people that are going to spend a ton of money trying to throw this in, saying it's good. And obviously you have people that aren't happy with the current strength of the Idaho Republican Party, saying that it's too mean, it's not inclusive. We had a story the other night on one of the TV stations where, well, some people aren't Republicans and some people aren't Democrats, but they want to vote. And I'm thinking, pick a team. Your thoughts?
Well, independents, even under a current system, still do great. I mean, and they can, and the primaries are one thing. The party gets to choose what kind of system they want to have. And ranked choice voting would do away with that. The presidential primary that we had this year was not a primary. It was not in the primary voting, but it fell with a presidential caucus on March 2nd. And the primary was on May 21st. So we did two very effectively here, and a lot of good things happened during that primary. In addition to that, now everybody can vote for anybody they want when they go in and get their ballot. They don't have to pick Republican or Democrat or independent or anything. They can just go in and vote for whoever they want. That's what really motivates people to vote, is that they can pick anyone they want. That's pretty important in my book.
It is. So if you are running the Republican Party, how do you counter this?
Well, I think they need to put out information based on this website and other websites that are going to be out there, and make sure that people in both parties know that it's going to be bad for them, and it's also bad for independents. And that's a big chunk of the electorate out there that, hey, and start to message that. And I think we will see that. I think there's going to be individual groups like this one I've mentioned, IdahoFairElections.com. I think they're going to be doing some work, and there's going to be a lot of others out there. There's also going to be the ones from, I don't know what ranked choice voting promoting that this is a good system. I don't know what they're going to be spending, but it's likely going to be generated by a lot of dollars from outside the state to generate the interest and enthusiasm for this issue. But when you go down and start to look at the details show that it's really bad for Idaho voters, and the current system we have in place has been working extremely well. Why should we change a system that's been working extremely well? The canvassing or the signature gathering that they've done is really was really based on the back of a lot of faulty information being given to voters before they signed. And most voters are not really up on ranked choice voting, so they had nothing to argue back with, because they didn't know what they were even doing a signature for. So I think once people find out what it is, they're going to step away very quickly and decide, what they should do.
Mike, Tracy, anything else we should be looking out for today? We appreciate your time and your insight as always, sir.
Well, I would like to reestablish that the effort that's going on out at the CUNA Fairgrounds on September 14th, it can go to Idaho. Let's see, I've got it down here. I need to just pull it up. It's for the CUNA group that is working on, let's see, Idaho Save. Well, I've lost it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't they can just contact you. You can text me and I'll get it out there. But people want to get a hold of you, how they can help the folks in CUNA, how they can get their message out, how do I get a hold of you, Mike Tracy?
208-863-3940. And I really thank you, Kevin, for letting me share some information with you today.
No, we love you and your website because, phone numbers are tough to remember, but we got Mike Tracy on the web.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, Mike. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I really appreciate that. So we will get the word on that website. And basically the CUNA folks, is there going to be a solar farm there? Is there going to be farmland? A very, very good topic that Mike Tracy has launched us with. So coming back, we're going to talk more about the big city BSU controversy. And we're going to talk a little bit about the CUNA controversy. Thanks to our friend Mike Tracy. Please appreciate his insight. And of course, 50 years ago this week, Evel Knievel in Idaho. Oh my. Was there more manly man than Evel Knievel? KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. You know what they say. Stop freaking. Call Beacon today. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kevin. KIDO Talk Radio traffic from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Still seeing heavy slowdowns between I-84 and Robinson all the way back to Karcher. And outside of that, things are moving along pretty smoothly. Direct orthopedic care. For sprains, strains, and breaks, skip the ER and go direct to DOC. Drop in without an appointment to one of 5 Treasure Valley locations. Visit BoiseDoc.com to learn more. That's your traffic now on KIDO Talk Radio.
Called SaveOurGroupGround.com in CUNA. SaveOurGroupGround.com in CUNA, September 14th, 6 p.m. to midnight to support those folks. Appreciate that. Of course, appreciate our friend Mike Tracy joining us now. Phone numbers here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Cowboy Calvin with Kay Millie on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cowboy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Miller. Good morning, Americans. I've been trying to listen to your station lately, and I couldn't pick it up. I wondered if you're being censored. And my horse is getting irritated because he can't hear the show.
Well, that could be. As I say, you never know what day will be your last day around here. So,
I found it strange. We got black helicopters, yellow helicopters flying over, Chinese balloons, and now your station's going fritz.
No one's sorrier than I am, boss.
Right. I ride like Evel Knievel, except that on a horse. Here in the Idaho mountains, you got to be pretty darn good.
Well, what'd you make of that? Where were you when Evel Knievel jumped the snake or tried to jump the snake?
Oh, my goodness. That was so many years ago, I can't hardly remember.
Boy, 50 years ago, Cowboy Calvin.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I was probably on the West Coast there somewhere riding around.
On a horse or a motorcycle?
Well, I've done both, Kevin, but I got hurt more on a motorcycle than a horse. Well, maybe that's not the truth. It's all equal. I like to go fast.
I bet you do. I'm a slowpoke Joe myself.
Yeah. My theory was when all else fails, go faster. Then you'll do better. I'm not up to date because I haven't been able to get the reception, but are you going to have a debate party?
Well, we're trying to make that happen, Cowboy Calvin. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this time around, little buddy. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I wanted to make history and be around the group, and it would have been a very nice get-together on that.
Maybe somebody who's conservative and has a big place with lots of TVs would call in and say they'd support us, Cowboy Calvin. When if we just say, please, 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 somebody support our debate watch party. Please, please, please fix the radio signal. Please, please, please stop the insanity.
Well, I don't know if please is the proper word, but I won't say over the air what I'm thinking to use.
Right.
Well, happy trails, Kevin.
Oh, you're giving me the boot? You're moving on your way? Where are you going, to the Starbucks this morning?
Well, I got to feed the horses.
I understand.
On the radio, and, they're kind of demanding when they see me. They start making noise.
Yeah. I understand, sir. You have a blessed day, Cowboy Calvin.
You too.
Bye.
Happy trails.
Happy trails. By the way, if you haven't driven a Mazda lately, go to Team Mazda and do it. Specifically, test drive the new Mazda CX-30 subcompact SUV and the new Mazda CX-50 midsize SUV. The Mazda CX-30 shot up to the top of vehicle rankings in the subcompact category. Why? Because it's fun to drive, has a luxury-like interior, and it looks great. The Mazda CX-50 is only 2 years old, but it's already the top-rated SUV and is perfect for anyone looking for an all-wheel drive car for winter and off-road driving that's big enough for a family and your gear. Like the CX-30, the interior is way nicer than similar vehicles from Honda, Toyota, Nissan, and Kia. And if you're thinking, I can't afford a new car, think again. Because of the low payment lease deals you can get at Team Mazda right now, many used car shoppers are driving away in a new Mazda CX-30 or a new Mazda CX-90 or 50 or a new Mazda because the payment is lower. Go test drive at Team this week. Team Mazda in the pre-owned superstore on the boulevard or online at goteammazda.com. As we like to say, Aaron and Joel do an outstanding job. They are terrific. And it's just not me reading talking points because there are no talking points for me to describe how great a job they do to make sure that you can get the vehicle that you can afford and that you're proud of and it's safe and reliable. A lot of people talk, but Team Mazda, Aaron and Joel, they always deliver. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We do appreciate Cowboy Calvin giving us his review and commentary on a few things. That's what we're here for till 10 each and every day. And then it's the Clay and the Buck and the Sean and the Lars and the Glenn and the beats go on and on. But here we have something that locally is happening, and it could happen to anybody. And this is the story how I remember because we were on the air covering this as it happened. And by the way, if you notice, nobody really talks about local opinions anymore. Nobody says that Boise State was wrong to show Big City Coffee the door. Nobody says that Boise State was wrong to allow the woke students to disrupt a local coffee company that spent local resources to be local at Idaho's premier university, at least here. I know the Vandals and the Bengals and the whatever else the Lewis and Clarkers are, we're going to disagree with. Boise State is the national brand in the state of Idaho. Boise State University is renowned, famous. Everybody roots for Boise State. It's America's football underdog. However, here you have Sarah Finley. She goes there, opens it up, decides that she's going to support the police. Her fiance at the time, Kevin Holtree, paralyzed, injured in the line of duty, was almost killed in a shootout. And a lot of us, because we play video games, the winds of witchcraft or whatever, we think of those things as no big deal, but obviously words can't describe the pain and the suffering that officers go through each and every day to protect and to serve. And there shouldn't be against the law at a publicly funded university by Idahoans and our tax dollars to have woke in-state students, woke out-of-state students decide that Big City Coffee has to go, and you have a squishy administration, in my opinion, that decides to, well, Big City, you got to go because the students say so. And we have now a $10 million court case going on. You imagine this, 24 years of a local business gone forever. And this is why we have litigation. That's why, and Boise State tried to get this trial dismissed. It's going on now. It's taken 3 years, almost 3 years to get this thing to court. Now, if I'm Boise State that has millions of dollars, why not settle this? Why not say, okay, we'll be seeing you. By the way, what the thin blue line has to do with the coffee shop's lawsuit against Boise State, another story from the Statesman. By the way, the Statesman, I don't even get a thank you. You know what I get for the Idaho Statesman for being a subscriber to that publication? The bill. There's no thank you. There's no T-shirt. There's nothing. And they wonder why most of us are going away. Like the local coffee shops. And really, where is the outrage? Where are people on talk radio? Where are the people where are the great opinion writers? Where is the brilliant Dr. Kustra, the man that can go after our crime-fighting attorney general? Where is the guy that tells it like, oh, that's right? He used to be the president of Boise State University. He has a show on taxpayer-funded Boise State radio. If I had one wish in life, if I could talk to Aladdin, you know what I'd say? I'd say, dear Aladdin, please make public television and public radio not taxpayer-funded. Because they put out a great product, but they're subsidized. I'm subsidizing my own competition. Let them go out, and if the libs want to support the libs, or let me opt out of supporting Boise State Public Radio. Let me opt out of Idaho Public Television. A great, great entity. But when have they ever had anybody of our ilk on? Well, we've had Republicans on. That ain't a conservative, little buddy. And that's fine. They do a lovely job. But if you had to vote, people would give them the boot. And I'm so tired of the dainty Boise State crowd. Does anybody besides plump when you cook them, Kevin Miller, have enough guts to call these people out? I hope this lady wins her lawsuit. But again, it's going to go on and on and on. Because again, and I've had to deal with litigation personally and professionally over the last couple of years. That's what they do. They just try to keep rolling. And now here you have Big City Coffee out. Now, do the woke students that don't like the police, that are police haters, have they ever paid a mortgage? Oh, no, they get student debt relief from Joe Biden. And, you know, aren't you just so tired of people going, well, you know, now we can't be offensive.
Joe Biden.
I think people are mad as hell. And, you know, most of us work for godless corporations. Here you have a local woman supporting the police, and that's the thing, and that's the fear. Now, the fear doesn't happen in Texas. The fear doesn't happen in South Carolina. The fear doesn't happen in Alabama. In Pittsburgh, maybe. The Democratic Party has been in charge of the city of Pittsburgh longer than the Soviet Union. I know they ran me out. But you're thinking in Idaho, why is everybody so afraid of the left? I don't want to get canceled, and you're right. This Big City Coffee issue should be the marginal line, the Rubicon, if you will. Because if they're allowed to get rid of Big City Coffee, if they're allowed to get rid of people, not even conservatives, not even Republicans, although I bet they are, but for supporting the police. And then we have the dainty reporter wannabes. By the way, local TV is dead. They all, Big City Coffee this and Boise State that and oh, it's interesting. No, it isn't. Tell that to somebody that if they don't serve that cup of Americana, they're out of work. It's real life. And maybe this show isn't for you. Okay. I'm good with that. And I don't mean to push you off, but maybe there's a reason why we don't talk about the big issues. Maybe we just go, let's do this. My goodness gracious. Can you imagine that? For supporting the police, a $10 million lawsuit. This lady is all in. And unfortunately, due to our own, and I will say my incompetence, we never got to do a show from Big City Coffee. We never got to support them. And now they're out of business. And you could say, well, Kevin Miller, you're bashing the students. You're darn right I'm bashing them. And I'm bashing the administration for allowing that to happen. That's why we don't have Dr. Trump on. That's why we don't go to Boise State anymore. Because if you drink the Kool-Aid, well, there you have it. And you know what we do? We go, well, thank goodness it's not me. Thank goodness I'm not the one that's in trouble. Oh, no, we don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, apparently we do. Because it's the right thing to do. Who's willing to do that? Who's willing to join me? Good morning, Lucille.
Good morning, Kevin. I am just heartbroken hearing the story of this poor lady who lost her business because a bunch of little Starlings wannabes decided that her supporting the police was offensive. And why do we have to be so careful about not offending these people, Kevin? Why should I be so careful about not offending little imbeciles, ignorant from every corner, who support a group that wants the extermination of a whole people based on their race? Why should I be so worried about offending a group of people who think that, people carrying signs that say rape is resistance, calling all feminists, you cowardly cows? Why should I be so mindful of not offending them?
Oh, look, I'm with you, but you take a look at Boise State. Instead of backing Big City, they didn't back Big City, and then all of a sudden you got the court documents and everything else. Are you going to let the students run the school?
Well, I suppose they are letting. And why should they run the school? I mean, look what they do. They're completely ignorant. They support everything out of sheer knee-jerk reaction. You scratch underneath that and there is nothing, because they don't know the first thing about anything. They're just Pavlovian dogs. You sound a little ding-ding-ding bell for them, ow, ow, they all get on their hind legs and they bark, and they don't even know why the bloody hell they're barking. So why should anybody be so mindful of offending them? I am offended by them every single day. Who cares about that, Kevin? I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to silence them. I am not going to persecute them. They have the right to make absolute asses of themselves, and they do every day. But why should I be, you can't offend them? Why? Why not? They offend an entire people by saying you should be exterminated just because Hamas does not like you. And it's all right to burn babies in ovens, and it's all right to rape women, and it's all right to kill children in front of their parents because that is resistance. And I have to be mindful of their tender sensitivities. What kind of world are we living in, Kevin?
Oh, I'm with you.
What kind of world?
Yeah.
I hope they get mortally offended every time, because that's what they deserve. And if they're so devoted to their cause, well, martyrs die for their cause, don't they? They suffer and they're offended for their cause, aren't they? It's all very well to say, oh, no, I can offend everybody and I can persecute everybody and I can intimidate them and all that. But no, don't you dare, no retribution here. These little petty dictators, I can't stand them. Somebody should have put them across their lap and give them a good whacking when they were kids. Seriously, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Nobody gets whacked anymore. That's the problem.
Well, that's the problem. The only ones who get whacked are decent people, and all in the hands of these little starling wannabes. No, go ahead and offend them. Go ahead. They deserve it. They earned it.
What would you say to the people at Big City Coffee?
Oh, Kevin, I wish I were Elon Musk to get them excellent lawyers and to help them win the cause. And all I can say now is I'm going to pray for you, and I hope that you win this case, because they deserve to win it, Kevin. Again, these people have all the right to speak their mind, but the owner of the cafe does not have the right to speak her mind and defend the police. I hate that, Kevin. I really do. As an American, I hate it. And I think all decent Americans should be on the side of this poor woman and try to help her one way or the other. I would tell her to hang in there, and I'm going to pray for her, and I sincerely hope that she wins the case. That's all I can say.
Lucille, thank you for the call. Paulie, apologize we can't get to you. Hang in there. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up next, we're going to talk to the former mayor of Meridian. Very important story with Kevin Miller. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We're going to do something very different here. We've got a young lady that we know and has been involved in Idaho politics for quite some time. And I know she mentioned a man that is her husband many times over the years. She was always very nice to me at Albertsons when I'd see her on Cherry Lane. And even though I look like a bum and I'm scruffy half the time, she always had a very, very nice welcoming to Idaho. And I can't believe I've been here this long. And, of course, our great friend Mayor Tammy Weerd with her husband Jan with us as well. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin, for having us.
I get a little emotional because that's why I'm looking away from you guys because, moving to a new place is so very difficult. And you always, whether we agreed or not, we always agreed on everything. You always were very warm and welcoming, and I really have to thank you for that hospitality.
Well, Kevin, I always loved your huge heart for certain charities and your big personality.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. And, you are here to talk about something very important, obviously. If anybody has looked at the cover of Christian Living magazine, they know you two are on the cover. Talking about how God helped you through a crisis. Also, you have a new book out, When We Could Not See the Moon, a true story of faith as told by the family of your daughter, Savannah. So before we get to that, a life in politics. A life in the public eye. Before we get to the book, how has it been? I know you guys have a winery, and I don't mean to cyberstalk you all the time, but you guys seem to have moved on from a life of running Meridian.
Well, we did. We followed our passion. We've always traveled the world by winery. Jim.
Yes, you always talk about your world travels. Yeah.
Yes. So we started a storytelling business about wine. There's so many awesome stories behind the wine that as we find an exhilarating, exceptional wine, and then we find the story behind it, you really find that life in a glass, the purpose and the story and the passion behind that glass of wine that you're drinking and enjoying. And so that's what Jan and I are doing right now as we travel. We have a YouTube channel. It's called Spoken Wines.
Now, what's that like? I mean, we all are analog kids. So now you got your fancy YouTube channel, your storytelling. It's pretty intense, man. I can't even flip the liver here.
I was just really impressed how Tammy just switched onto that. And she is actually now our professional videographer. I think we should say professional videographer. Right. Yeah. And not only now with one camera, she said, no, Jan, we need two cameras. We need to have a different angle so we can switch back and forth. So she's right there with it. But we also have great help. Actually, both our girls are into it as well. One lives in Cape Town, South Africa, and the other in Amsterdam, so they're both engaged. But we have an art director in South Africa who's familiar with this territory, which we were not even close. And he's really guiding us through it and helping us to put really, these nice professional videos together. And yeah, you have to learn how to upload them from Dropbox into YouTube, and of course get the right thumbnail and the title and go with it. And it's been a lot of fun.
Actually, we have a little taste of what you do, because we take an hour interview and we have to narrow it down to 8 minutes of the story of what they told and be very concise. It has stretched us both, because this was not, storytelling was our forte, but certainly not the technology and the social media. But we've been enjoying doing this together and certainly having that opportunity to work with our kids.
It doesn't sound like retirement. I mean, you guys don't want to read a book and of course, you travel all the time anyway.
No, instead we write a book.
Yeah, you write a book as well. And before we get to this, because this is going to be some long segments, some emotional segments, your thoughts on your beloved city of Meridian that you served for so long. I mean, every time, let me just say this. Sorry to lead the witness. But I see all that development. That's you, man. I remember before there was 10 Mile, before all that stuff. I mean, you had a vision years ago to bring in people to Meridian.
It's been interesting to see from now an outsider perspective. But we put together a strong plan, and as long as that plan is followed, people know what to expect, and we've seen some pretty incredible things come our way. Yeah. I think we still have our challenges, and they're a focus of Mayor Simison and what his team is doing. But I love Meridian. I continue to love Meridian. And Kevin, I still enjoy going into Albertsons and seeing people, and oddly enough, people still recognize me, and my heart melts when they say, "We miss you," or hi Mayor Tammy. That will always be in my blood.
Well, I mean, you can't beat the Cherry Lane Albertsons. I'm sorry. I love the Star one, but I mean, again, but that's what we talk about, not just the Albertson itself, but the community of Meridian, and really Idaho in general, where, people ask, how are you doing, and they really care.
Yes, that's very true. You don't just keep walking to answer. You stop and talk.
Yeah, yes. Indeed. Any other, I'm looking at your YouTube, cows shape this vineyard, the oldest Shiraz vineyard in the world.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't even pronounce this stuff, so this is great stuff here on YouTube.
Yeah, it's just really, really incredible, and getting together with those families that run those vineyards, and it always spoke very much to me. I grew up on a farm, and I came out of agriculture, and that is basically what that is what I recognize here, because these families are so connected to the land, and they put so much money and effort and their toll into that vineyard to really get something to express through the grapes into a glass of wine that they feel that's their art, that expresses them. And then to hear those stories that how this particular family, bought this vineyard that was planted back in the early 1800s, planted by the settlers. They came in from northern Germany, Prussia somewhere, and now they get to take care of that and get these vines that are older than the American Civil War to basically speak into the wine. And that's why we have spoken wines, to tell those stories.
Okay, I'm going to show you my ignorance here real quick. Look, I saw Sideways. Does that do the wine industry justice? Paul Giamatti, and where they're going to Napa and all that, looking at the wines, you guys. Have you seen Sideways at all?
No. Yeah.
Oh, my. It's all about wine and Chardonnay and life. You have to see Sideways. It's like 10 years, 15. Well, you guys are too busy working. I mean, I just sit there and watch things. I don't really have a life, but Sideways is a great wine movie.
Well, we'll have to watch it.
All right. Much more coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. First of all, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, it really is about our story and how our daughter was imprisoned, and our journey after finding out how it started to lay out through our faith, but also through the help of the community. So our daughter is an adventurer, and
where did she get that from? Both of you guys.
I wonder where, but. Yeah. She just really enjoys going out and experiencing new cultures. And during COVID, she came home because the business that she was working for closed their doors back in England, and she was recruited by a local company here in Meridian. And it was a supplement company, and she did some work with them and really fell in love with their product, but she really did not want to be behind a desk. Her adventurous spirit was getting restless, and so she started her own business. And one of her first destinations that she wanted to try this digital nomad life was in Egypt. So
and you might wonder, wow, Egypt of all places. And as a matter of fact, that went through our head as well when we heard her saying that. But when she was in London, her former boyfriend was originally from Egypt. And so she had been there a couple times and really liked it and really fell in love with the Red Sea. She's an avid scuba diver. And so she could really envision her being there. There is somewhat of an expat community there with people from all around the world. And she had, aspirations to work from there, to get engaged also locally there, to protect the reef, clean it up, and all of that. And so late 2020, when she had made up her mind that she would create her own business, which is all engaged, with web traffic, e-commerce, analytics, she said, hey, I can do that from anywhere as long as I have good Wi-Fi connection and a powerful MacBook. Right. And so early 2021, that's when the journey started. And but she never made it.
Now, we had a routine because she loved to travel. She got into a routine of letting us know when she arrived at the airport. She was getting ready. In fact, in this regard, she was getting ready for this new adventure, this new chapter. And we heard from her as she was departing to fly into Egypt. And usually we hear when she arrives. And there was no word. And we were going through our weekend. So Friday night we heard from her that she was starting this next chapter. And Saturday came and went. And Sunday morning we woke up and still no message. And Jan sent her a WhatsApp message and said, have you arrived safely? How are things going? We'd love to hear from you. And silence. And that was so unlike her. So when I got a message after midnight, late Sunday night, early Monday morning, it was not from our daughter Hannah. It was from her younger sister, who wrote, "Hey, Mom, give me a call when you wake up in the morning. I have an update on Hannah." Well, of course, we were a little bit anxious and wasn't sleeping well anyway, and so I didn't wait to call. I picked up the phone right then, and it was then we found out that as Hannah was going through customs, she was pulled aside. And she really thought that she was the lucky winner of that random search. But
this is in Egypt.
In Egypt.
Okay.
But she couldn't see what they were doing because they weren't doing it in front of her. You need to understand that she was prepared to travel for 12 to 18 months. And so she had a lot of supplements in her suitcase. And she was ultimately detained for up to 12 hours and then arrested as a suspected drug trafficker because of her capsules. And she also had a package of protein pancake powder mix that they also were suspicious of. So she was put in jail in the basement with only a fluorescent light, and I think that Jan has this description down because when I talk about it, I just want to weep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so after that really long interrogation, this is of course all that we heard afterwards. At that time, we just had nothing. We were waiting to hear from her. We didn't. Then, our youngest daughter texted her. But yes, she was thrown basically in this holding cell in the dungeon, below ground level. No daylight came in. There was a light that was on 24/7, and it was pretty much a 12 by 12 foot holding cell, concrete floor, no bedding, no nothing. And she was held there anywhere with 10 to 20 other women. And yeah, most nights they had to negotiate and trade off some space on the floor to lay down to sleep. And that were the conditions. There was a hole in one corner where you could go to the bathroom, and there was a faucet for water, and that was basically it.
So here on Kaye Talk Radio, obviously we have our own criminal justice system. You two and your daughter and your family have got an education on the Egyptian justice system. And obviously the interrogation that we have here is very different from what they have over there.
Yeah, so the biggest difference of all here, I don't know exactly, they can only hold you for 2 or 3 days to build a case, and they have to prove that there's enough suspicion that you're guilty, because you're assumed innocent here. In those worlds, Egypt, a developing country, it's different. If you get arrested like that, you're assumed guilty. And then it's up to you to prove that you're not guilty. So it's totally around. And some of these women that I talked about that were in there, some of them had been there for months, and because nobody was fighting on their behalf, and they were just held there. And so that's where she was at. The reason that our youngest daughter had called was because just before they confiscated her phone, she texted them and said, "Hey, if you guys don't hear from me, it looks like they're going to arrest me for these capsules. And then, call my parents if you don't hear from me in a couple of days." Well, our youngest and her friends who got that text from her, they first wanted to see if they could solve it themselves. And they still had connection with the former boyfriend. And bless his heart. The breakup and all that, they were apart. They had moved on. But he came back in at all cylinders and tried to help out. So he organized, an attorney locally there that he kind of knew off. And they got to go in. And these kids, they pulled all their savings together to pay the retainer fee. But after a couple days in, while we were still waiting for this call, they came to the conclusion this is not going to be solved quickly. And so that's when we got the call, and that's when our journey started.
And when we talk about this, obviously you all are Americans. Your daughter's in Egypt. Egypt is an ally. What goes on through your mind? I mean, obviously, we probably think that a phone call can fix this. Well, first of all, they aren't allowed phone calls. But I mean, a phone call from our people to their people would. That's true. At that point, Kevin, we didn't know if she was hurt, where she was, even if she was alive, because no one had any contact with her since her phone was taken away and she was put into jail. So we just sat there and waited. We certainly as we were driving home from our cabin, we were up at the cabin when we found out. We were putting a plan together on who we needed to call and how to cast our net. But we also had to tap into our faith. I've been through some hard stuff with as a parent before, and I know where my source of strength is, and that lies in my faith. So as we were putting our plan together, we did reach out to our Idaho delegation, certainly Senator Risch's office. He had been the chair of the Foreign Senate Affairs Committee, so his office, his staff were incredible. But this is during a time of COVID where many people are still working out of their homes. It was a
time politically of a presidential turnover, so U.S. ambassadors are not in place. And it was extremely difficult getting information. First, from the lack of connection and contact that you could have. They're not allowed a phone call. The only person they're allowed to speak to is their attorney on a very limited basis. So it was an unknown legal system. It was an unknown situation of really where she was and how we could have that kind of access.
Yeah, so it was like we were in 4 or 5 days, and we finally got official confirmation that she was held. The 5 days leading into that is there was no official word of where she was, how she was. And yes, you kind of think like, okay, this is all one big misunderstanding. Come on, a few calls and we get this solved. But as Tammy explained this, who do you make the calls to? This attorney that our kids had hired was still at that level of time very obscure. We couldn't even talk to him. Whatever message we got from him wasn't clear if he was actually in contact with her or not. And through the official channels like the embassy or the consulate, nothing, zero. We didn't hear anything. There was nothing coming back. And the fact that we ultimately heard was a friend of ours knew of a Navy SEAL who was active in the Middle East, and that person contacted the embassy of Morocco, where he had another friend work, and through that embassy, he heard the news that, yes, the Egyptian consulate is aware of an American being held. And that was 5 days in. But that also kind of set the whole reason for this story, because as we went through this, as difficult as it was, as we were maybe felt we had finally a step forward and we dropped back 2 again, but it was amazing how people work together to wanting to do good. And Kevin, yes, we're people of faith, but faith is private to us, and we're all on our journey. But when we saw what was happening, how people were connecting, it was so clear to us that there was a greater force, a greater hand in connecting people, in opening doors that you would have never, ever heard of before. And as we were going through all of this crisis, and the faith, the trust and the clarity that we were getting back again by just giving it to God, giving it to a larger force to get that weight off your own shoulders, it opened up our mind. It gives you a fresh perspective. It gives you hope. And also ears and a heart to then really listen to what you should be doing. And we said, you know what? We don't know what outcome we will get in this story, but we got to share this with people that find themselves in similar situations.
We'll have more next. When we could not see the moon, our daughter locked away in a foreign jail. A true story of faith. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say, stop freaking, call Beacon. Our great friend Chris is with us to get you to work safely and on time or wherever you're going. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Kevin. KIDO Talk Radio traffic from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Still seeing heavy buildup of traffic eastbound I-84 from I-84 in Robinson all the way back past Middleton Road, and some heavy buildup eastbound I-84 in Eagle. Cut your power bill year-round with G&G Insulation and receive up to 30% of the cost in tax credits for insulation and air sealing materials. Call G&G Insulation or visit gnginsulation.com. That's your traffic now on KIDO Talk.
Our daughter locked away in a foreign jail. Jan and Tammy Weerd joining us. Thank you guys for being here. And, it's not an easy story. Your daughter imprisoned by the Egyptian government. But before we get to this, and how difficult was it to relive this experience and to write it down and to put it out? It's one thing to speak, but it's one thing to go over this and then to edit it and everything else. That had to be for lack of a better term, a grueling process? Or was it therapeutical?
It was probably a little bit of both, Kevin. We wrote through a ghostwriter. So we turned over our 180-page Google Doc because we had a lot of information. And also our daughter journaled. And while our daughter is still very traumatized by this and working through it, she gave the journal to the writer and spoke with them several times. But outside of that, that was her involvement in the book. We have not read the journal still today. We got exactly what the reader did. When the writer would turn us over a chapter, and the chapters are from, we are using other names, so I'm Tracy and Jan is John. But when we would get our chapters for the day, she writes it from our perspective and then from the journal entry and what was going on at that time. So we saw Hannah's journal every chapter, one chapter at a time. And so it was reliving it. This is a heart project. Yeah. So it hurt the heart every time I would get a new chapter, and we would see how what she was doing paralleled with what we were doing.
And when we last left, you had been told that your daughter had been imprisoned. You had talked to folks. You had the Navy SEAL with the Moroccan consulate, the embassy. Your daughter is being held. It's at a time of COVID. And where do we go from here? So you have an attorney, very different legal system than here.
Yeah, so very difficult to communicate with the attorney. And then all of a sudden we got this note, this picture of this little note scribbled on the back of a brown paper bag. And it said something along the line of, "Mom, Dad, please don't worry about me. God is telling me that you're doing everything you can to get me out of here. I finally discovered the power of prayer." Something along that line it said. And now you have to realize this is our daughter talking. We haven't heard her. She's spiritual, but not in that sense. You haven't heard her talk like that probably since Sunday school when she was a little kid. So it was very clear that in that condition where she was in, where everything is stripped away, she just had this strong connection to God. And to us, it felt we could communicate with her in that way. And again, that when that guidance that took us there, that solace that we got into that, we felt we had to share. So it started with that. We finally had a kind of a Zoom type call with the attorney because we had all kinds of issues there. As a matter of fact, the ex-boyfriend who had found him, he at one time was really starting to wonder, if this was the right direction to go or not. So you had to still figure all that out. And in the meantime, it was just a big brick wall. We could not communicate with the consulate. Zero response back. Initially, it was very difficult to get other support as well because of procedural things that you have to read the book what we had to run into, because some of it you shake your head. How can that even be possible? But ultimately, our first plan was basically this. Hey, it should be simple. These are supplements. Test them. Get the report. Please get her out of there. And yeah, okay, we work on that. That would be anywhere from 30 to 40 to possibly 60 days before the lab report would come back. And we said, and that means she's held in jail. So we did everything we could with our connections and their connections and connections. I mean, multiple ways around the world. People of all kinds of different faith kicked into this to see what they could do to hurry up, to put pressure on the system there to get that lab report back much quicker. Because in the meantime, apparently what they have there, when they hold people, they have a hearing every 10 or 14 days. And at that hearing, you can bring new evidence forward to show that you're innocent. Because remember, you're there because they already assume you're guilty. And so when that next date was known, we did everything we could to get that report done. But in the meantime, we also worked on Plan B.
Yeah, so Plan A was get the lab results back and put as much pressure as you could to get a quick testing result. And we're navigating in a system that we don't understand and politically unsure.
Sure.
They don't want too much emphasis or making it a profile case. So that makes people really leery of putting pressure and those kind of things. But we're focused on that one date. And unfortunately, as you'll read in the book, we got the date wrong. We had the date one day later after the court hearing. So, and actually the lab results came on that day, but it was not quick enough for the court date. Plan B, we always liked the backup plan, and we were working with the attorney convincing him that we need Plan B. And Plan B was working with our officials in Idaho and showing that the ingredients in those supplements are legal. So the supplement company, oh my gosh, they dropped everything and they just went to work. So we had an ingredient list. At that time, the Attorney General, Lawrence Wasden, had just gotten out of surgery, was just coming home when he noticed my Facebook message to him. Mm-hmm. And he called and he said, "What do you need? What can I do?" I just got back from the hospital. I was just totally floored. This is Idaho.
Right.
This is the people of Idaho. And oh my gosh, he engaged his office. We worked with the State Department of Pharmacy. They wrote a letter supporting the ingredients of those supplements, and we got a letter from the Attorney General's office, and we handed over this great document that one of the things we haven't mentioned is this arrest showed up in a local tabloid. And that was a godsend. Outside of our horror that this was out there and it was being sensationalized by a very unread tabloid, but there was a picture. And I was able to use that picture to identify what the supplements were by the capsule, by the picture that the supplement company gave us. And then we could then put together this document of what was in those bags and what those ingredients were. Just in the case that the lab got hung up on an unknown ingredient, we wanted to have this to support it so we could get those lab results back. But the judge found this Plan B document, and he determined, even though he didn't have the lab results back yet, this person should not be in prison.
Yeah, so he set bail.
Oh, she wasn't going to get free. It was bail.
It was bail, not free, to let out on bail. And that was, of course, a big problem. In the meantime, when that hearing was there, our youngest daughter had flown over there because that would be the first person that then our oldest daughter could actually see in person, because that was a time that they possibly could meet. And she went there, and then the judge said she can be released on bail. And then our youngest girl had to basically empty out almost every single ATM machine in that city to raise the cash to get her out.
Within a certain amount of time.
And we're not really talking about New York. We're talking about Egypt.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When We Could Not See the Moon is the book. Coming up, and we want to give you as much time as possible, we're going to ask, if you guys went to Egypt and much, much more. Again, you need to check out this book, When We Could Not See the Moon, A True Story of Faith. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM and 580 AM. Your daughter is in Egypt. Your other daughter is about ready to get out on bail. You're emptying the ATM machines. Now, Tammy and Jan, my question to both of you is, were you guys going to go to Egypt?
We were advised by the attorney not to. Having our youngest daughter there was one thing, but putting too much attention on our daughter that was in jail, he highly advised us not to go. We would be too much of a distraction, and it could work as a detriment instead of a support. And really, he said, at that point, the likelihood of being able to even see her was highly unlikely. So we did what we could, working through Senator Risch's office, working through some of our other contacts, and doing what we could here in Idaho, and even then, we had to get out. We had to turn off the distractions here too. So we really did need to focus on what we were doing in this regard.
Yeah, we really asked ourselves, where can we be more effective? I mean, first of all, it was impossible to fly out there on short notice because of COVID situation. There were no flights. And secondly, with our network, as we've now talked about, where are we going to be more effective? And there would have been no way we could put Plan B even together if we were in some country where you don't have access to anything. And I just couldn't help, think of, okay, you're in front of some police station or some jail, but what are you going to do there? And again, our attorney had advice to don't make it public because then people dig in.
Indeed. So where do we go from here? Did she get out on bail?
She was at her court date. The judge said she should be released on bail, but she was never released. And that was probably the beginning of the most difficult time for her, because as she was in jail, she was really focused on, I know that first court date, I'll be out. They'll see that there's a misunderstanding. And as she's in there, she's feeling a lot of guilt because she sees her privilege. She sees a lot of women that don't have the support system that she has. And she felt really, she felt that deeply. But I think that after that, she was told by her attorney that she was released on bail, and that it would just be a day or two to really process all of it. And each day came and went, and she's still sitting there.
Yeah, and nothing happened, and basically that was only half in at that time because it was hard. She didn't understand what was happening, and from our side, it was very hard too because this was at that time that our attorney didn't know anymore either. He said she should be set free on bail, and it wasn't. And then you just can't help. You get into these systems that, somebody was holding it up because they wanted to get paid. Or, whatever is all happening there, but it was definitely a log Jam. And yeah, in the meantime, through all these connections that we had, also a plan C was starting to get evolved.
You got a lot of plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I can just read, so because our daughter's situation was getting worse and worse, not being fed properly, not getting fresh water, and we got those little messages. Either she smuggled these messages out of jail through women that had been set free, or even somewhat. Our attorney tried to protect us as much as we could. We could see that after the fact because he all made it sound a little bit better than it was when we heard it. But we did actually get a phone call from her, believe it or not, and that was on a phone that was smuggled into the jail, which is also very scary. And the book will talk about what all happened because, as Tammy explained earlier, the book is written as such day by day from Tammy's perspective, from my perspective, and then from Hannah's perspective. And you can see that when we got the call from the attorney, hey, I can maybe get a phone in there, so you can talk to her. And we thought that was all the most wonderful thing. We didn't realize the danger that created. And yeah, you need to read the book about that. So this was evolving, but totally nothing was happening. And so I can read this segment if you'd like me in the book here.
Okay, well, we're going to have to wait till after the news, if that's okay with you. Yep. We don't want to rush the segment. We don't want to rush this, sir.
Sounds wonderful, yeah.
All right, much more coming. So this is what I'll do. I'm going to talk to myself for the next 30 seconds. So you guys hang out, and coming up next, much more. Remember, this is a book that you should read and that you should really use it as an inspiration. And coming up next, we're going to talk to Tammy and Jan about this. Is this a book about triumph when we're talking about faith and how important God is and how we realize how important God is to all of us when we're faced with incredible challenges. And if you're going through an incredible challenge, you need to listen because we're with you. God bless. Friends, Tammy and Jan, talking about their new book. Could you give me the title? Because you guys have the book over there, so I'm at a disadvantage.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's When We Could Not See the Moon.
Right. Talking about faith and the struggle. Jan, you wanted to read an excerpt from this book to inspire people. Your daughter's being held by the Egyptian government. We think that they're going to get bail, and that doesn't happen. And when you talk about a crisis of faith, when we have these expectations, and all of a sudden there's a challenge, it really sends it to our core when you have your daughter imprisoned by this government over the mistaken supplements. It's a story that you need to read to really do it justice. But Jan, you wanted to share with us an excerpt?
Yeah, so we've been talking about the journey and how what we try to do on our end, what we could do to get her out, of course, as quick as possible. And it was just so many stops and goes and things happened in between. But we had our plan A. We talked about that, right? How can we get these supplements just simply tested and, get her out of there? That didn't happen in time. Then plan B was that was actually seemed to be successful because the judge decided, hey, there's enough evidence here. I start to believe she's not guilty and she should be set free on bail. But then that never happened. It nothing changed, and it was a total log jam. And then here is a segment, and we had been working again. Tammy had many contacts, and one of those contacts via led to a possible plan C. And so this is what I can say about Plan C. I don't want to talk about it too much. We still want to encourage people to read the book. It is indeed, the reviews that we've gotten on it, it's a fast page turner. But the reason we'd like to get the book out there is the message underneath it that you talked about, Kevin. we wanted to share how we were able to lean into faith, the strength we got from faith, and then community, getting together, a community around the world to get our daughter back to freedom. And it's woven within this story that we hope others can find strength into that. You know, it's not preachy. We don't want to preach to the choir anyway. With this, we want to reach people that maybe are on the fence on faith, or maybe, what is it really? Or maybe even skeptical of it. And I can understand it. But it was so real for us. I mean, it was right in our face. And we couldn't deny it. And I just have to share it. It's my duty. And so, going back to the segment I wanted to read, because here we were getting desperate too. Our attorney didn't know anymore what to do. We had some messages via that our daughter was really under stress now in that jail. And so it goes here. You know, we were well into it now. I was ready to pull the trigger on Plan C. There were reasons we hadn't, of course. While nothing had been doing or dealing with in Hannah's case over the past weeks could be described as black and white, Plan C fell in an entire new shade of gray we hadn't yet encountered. Through friends of friends and distant colleagues, we'd been blessed with many resources over the past month. So many people had stepped up in so many ways. But there was one card we hadn't immediately put into play. We knew that once we did, there would be no turning back.
And to be continued.
To be continued.
Okay.
We certainly encourage people to check out our website at whenwecouldnotseethemoon.com and see more about the story. You can find out how to pre-order the book. The book release is September 24th. We do have a launch and signing event at the newest restaurant in Meridian downtown. And you know, downtown is where my heart and soul is. It's a restaurant located next to Generations Plaza on Main and Idaho, Las Calaveras.
And even if you don't live in Meridian, you should go.
Yes, I think if you live anywhere within these airwaves,
even in
you
Star,
should go.
even in Star,
even Star and Cuna. I love the Treasure Valley. Yeah. But we'll be there from 4:30 to 7 on the 24th, and we would love you to come down, say hello, bring your book. We'd love to sign it, and we'll have some books there as well. But we would love to see people, and we'd love to share our story of faith. We think it's important that people have hope, they have light during their time of darkness.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both.
Thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate it. We'll have you guys back. Yeah. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And Jan, very high-profile people in our community and their daughter locked away in a foreign jail. When we could not see the moon, and instead of being, bitter like Kevin Miller, they talked about the experience as a way to increase their faith. And when we could not see the moon.com, if you're interested to pre-order that book, an amazing story. And we thank them for joining us here to talk about it. Let's go to Paulie, who has been holding for 3 hours. I'm not kidding, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Paulie.
Thanks for taking my call, Kevin. It seemed like it was a little bit more important to have those people say what they had to say.
Well, thank you.
It's not like they read out of the book, they lived it, so it's a little bit different when they're able to get across instead of just ink on the pages.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Kev. I don't mind waiting for something like that, definitely. Now, do you remember, it was not too long ago, before the last couple of, at least one administration, when being an American citizen meant something, and you knew you were going to get help from the State Department or somebody in the government to be able to release you. I don't see that happening anymore. It really disturbs me. I still recall waiting on the bench, waiting for a loop at the golf course where I was working at the time, and George Schultz would roll up. And I didn't know who and what he was doing, but he was a high muckety-muck in the government with Reagan. He was in Reagan's cabinet. And, that's back when Reagan said, we do not negotiate with terrorists. Well, nowadays, since Joe Biden's taken office, he seems to think it's better that we pay him off and then let them kill the hostages and then go from there. And I'm really against that. Those 6 hostages that were murdered in that tunnel that had been dragged around since October 7th, they didn't deserve what they got, and that was a bullet in the head. And I'm just unfortunate that I'm able to talk to you today on the radio. It sounded like you were, when I first tuned you in at 6 o'clock this morning, it sounded like you were in one of those domes of Jiffy popcorn popping away. I don't know what was going on with the radios. It was in my car, and it was also in my boom box. But it seems to have gone away.
Well, and let me just say this. We apologize for our technical issues, and we thank everybody, including you, especially you, Paulie, that have brought it to our attention because it shows that you care. And, we try to bring something here, and when something's wrong, people should know about it.
Right, it's not a complaint. It's just to let you know.
No, dude, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. There's nothing wrong with complaining. If you're not complaining, you're not trying. Too many times we say, and I won't say where I've heard this from, people at work say about Kevin Miller, all I do is complain. Well, yeah, that's why I was a horrible troop in the Army. But that doesn't mean I don't care. I do care.
Anyway, on Friday, I called you guys early in the morning, and at 2:30, I found myself in the theater over at the Spectrum, and I watched Ronald Reagan's movie, and it was really touching to me in a lot of different ways. Some where it was infuriating you, and others it was enlightening, which made you feel hopeful, and you got to see parts of his childhood and how he was treated and how he had to face a bully. And I'm not going to give out any more information than that, but it's well worth the money. And it's difficult to say that with the price of movie tickets nowadays. I mean, I went popcornless. I went Jujubes corn. I didn't buy Jujubes. I didn't buy a soda. I walked in with a water, and that's all I had. And it was a long one. It seemed like it was close to 3 hours, but it was worth every minute of it. And it was a story that needed to be told. It was a long time coming. Anyway, back to George Schultz. He was quite the manager of the men that he had in his cabinet and the women that he had in his cabinet. And George, in no uncertain terms, let him know who his boss, and that was him, on certain matters that he had expertise in. And so, Ronnie listened and made up his mind, not necessarily making the decision that Schultz had made, but came up with a compromise between the two of them. And you see how a team worked. I don't get that feeling from this administration at all. It's all cattywampus. It's like they're all on hallucinogenic drugs and don't know what they're doing. They don't talk to each other. They just do what they think is right. And that is no way to run a government of 350 million Americans. It saddens me and it enrages me at the same time. But there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So, like we said, no whining.
Yeah. Paulie, thank you for your commitment. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye. God bless.
God bless you, too.
Let's go to the Stuntman with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Stuntman.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Boy, I've been riveted listening to that story this morning, and it caused me, I've been on hold with you, so I called Trump, and I had a conversation with Trump about this has got to stop. And you know what Trump said to me? Yeah, it's like nobody's at the helm. So right now, between now and the election, everybody should call their Congress and complain about everything because there's nobody at the helm. Trump can't do anything, and Kamala's not going to, and Joe is on the beach in Delaware. So it's a very serious time to be. Everybody's going to try to get away with some stuff now, all these communist, Marxist people. But listen, on another note, thank you, Kevin, for having them on and telling their story. I just want to tell you something funny about yesterday. We had a microbust here in Middleton. I don't know if you got hit with a windstorm, but I did. And my front window on my studio literally got blown out. And I talked to 3 people about who can come and fix this window. Just a simple thing like that. You got to take the window out. Who's going to fix this window? I met a guy in Ridley's Market. His name was Trevor. And he said, call Custom Mirror and Glass. I didn't even know who they were. I called them, and this guy named Pete Rossi showed up.
You're really going all out for your window repair people, aren't you?
Well, I'm just saying, if anybody else had a busted window, I had 3 places called, said, no, we can't do anything. No, we can't do anything.
You called 3 places and they said they couldn't fix a busted window. What about Safe Light? Don't they do that?
Oh, no, on my studio.
Oh, I thought.
Okay.
Well, I thought maybe they could do that. Maybe they could do the car too, or the studio.
Oh,
Safe
you know
Light.
What? I never thought of that. That's
Safe
why
Light repair. Safe Light, yeah. Safe Light.
Yeah, no, Custom Mirror and Glass. It's in Middleton. It's right over on Lansing. And he said, can you get the window out and bring it here? And I did. Amazing people. And in Middleton, our little town of Middleton, that microbus lifted this thing up and busted right through the window. A double pane, my studio window, 5 feet by 4 feet wide. So
wow.
If anybody else has got busted windows. But more importantly, Kevin, man, what a story. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone goes out and buys a ticket to the movie or goes to the movie, because we better start respecting and taking care of our country. We're going to be in serious trouble here. And I don't want to keep you unless you got something to tell me about how to fall in a building.
No, all I can say is I'm bandaging my knee while some other guy is hooking up with the girl or something like that. But anyway, we love you, Stuntman.
I will keep you, but thank you so much for being who you are. And I don't know what we'd do without you, Kevin. I'm just telling you, Rush is gone. You better get healthy, buddy. We need you around for a while longer.
Well,
the next time you get ready to go off the building, tell me before you do that so I can come over and show you how to fall.
I appreciate that. How to safely fall off a building.
That's it. And if you need if you got a busted window, I can't believe nobody else had this problem yesterday. You got to call Custom Mirror and Glass and ask for Pete Rossi. What a wonderful guy, Christian boy. And guess what? You'll never believe this. Guess what his 2 kids, they went to Middleton High School, guess what their names are?
Peter and Paul.
Tony and Vinny.
Even better.
Those are my 2 kids' names. My kids' name, Tony and Vinny. His 2 kids are named Tony and Vinny. Tell me I didn't get smacked in the head again. You know what I mean? Anyway, I love you, Kevin.
We love you. God bless.
All right. Call me if you need me.
Yes,
Talk
sir.
to you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's the beauty of this program, and whether you listen on the podcast, the air, people care. And, we had Tammy and Jan de Weerd here earlier, and if you missed any of that, you can catch it on the podcast. And that was an hour interview, which, look, they can talk about Joe Rogan and Theo, whatever his name is. But when it happens on the radio, it's magic. And I know everybody loves the podcast, and somebody else was bragging to me about a podcast. It's great, but, for over 100 years, these call letters, KIDO, have served the community. And when I go back to this book, When We Cannot See the Moon, here you have this lovely couple that, one, an international business person, the other, the mayor of Meridian, the former mayor, in the time of COVID. And we have the Egyptian government arresting their daughter over supplements. The first thing we think of is, thank God that we all live in the United States of America. The second thing our friend Steve Bertle wrote this story. Good for him. in, Christian Living, Sandy's publication. But here we have what happens when the crisis happens, and it's a trial by faith and salvation. And to be able to hear from local people about local issues is something that we take pride in. So thank you very much for that opportunity. But when we all think that we have trouble, or when we all think that we're, oh my goodness, Billy has a newer car than I do, or they have a vacation home, it's all brought home to what's important when something is taken away, unfortunately. And our saying is, thank you, Lord, for blessing me. Thank you, Lord, for the challenges. Thank you, Lord, for our time together. And my goodness gracious, these folks that made it through, very inspiring. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say, stop freaking, call Beacon. They bring you Fox News and Kevin Miller on Idaho's talk station, KIDO Talk Radio.
Fox News, I'm CJ Papa. Just about 2 months left in the race to the White House. More from Fox's Mark Meredith at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
It is hard to believe, but early voting is about to get underway in some swing states. Later this week, North Carolina is going to begin sending out its absentee ballots. So for both major parties' presidential candidates, it is crunch time.
Former President Trump answering questions at a Fox News town hall, 9 p.m. Eastern, moderated by Fox's Sean Hannity. Vice President Harris in New Hampshire releasing her tax plan to help spur small businesses if she wins the election. U.S. Steel warning today thousands of layoffs if it doesn't merge with Japan's Nippon Steel, a deal both President Biden, the VP Harris, and former President Trump are all against. And the president of East Timor sees Pope Francis' upcoming visit as a chance to promote Asia's youngest country on the world stage. America's listening to Fox News.
Blake Kennedy, followed by Lars Larson. The gang just continues on Idaho's talk station. Here we go. Medic Dave returns on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Yeah, return of the dead medic. Anyway, I have a question, a comment about the military and stuff like that. First of all, when I was inducted into the Army, I took an oath. And in that oath, I said I will defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yes.
And as far as doing the job, as far as foreign enemies and stuff like that, the military has done an exceptional job in regards to that, except when it was under the command of inept and president that we have now in that situation with Afghanistan. But I do, and I support the military, but I have a concern whether that's going to live up to this aspect of defending our country against domestic enemies, because we do have a domestic enemy that's functioning into the higher echelons in our government right now, and that's called the Democrat Party. They have moved so far left, and they're pushing Marxist, communist agenda and everything, and I'm really concerned whether the military is going to stand up to the oath that they taken as far as defending against domestic enemies. I'm really concerned about that, so we need to really pray for our country. The other thing is, do you have ways that one could contact the campaign of Donald Trump and his campaign people? You know who they are, and you know how you can contact them? Because I have four things that I thought about that I would like to see President Trump bring up in the campaign, and I think that if he brought these four things up, that it would completely blow up Kamala Harris's campaign. So you know how one of our citizens would be able to get contact with those individuals to run these things by them to see what they would think and everything. So,
who am I? The Yellow Pages?
I guess so. I know you've contacted Donald Trump Jr. before, a few years ago, on trying to get Donald Trump to come to Idaho and things like that.
I know, and look, I got a big whopper here.
Evidently, you do have a way to contact the campaign people and everything, and so I was wondering if you would be able to advise me how I would be able to do that. So, or help me and make contact with
truly,
them.
I wish I did. My powers are gone now.
Okay, so you don't have any idea how a little citizen like me out in Idaho would be able to contact those folks.
I am right there with you, because if I could contact them, I would. I just got lucky once. That's all, Medic Dave.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, I guess I'll have to investigate other options and see how that would be possible anyway. So, but we have Marxist communist individuals that are trying to take over our country and change it to something that it's not supposed to be. And I think we need to do whatever we can to stop that from happening. So,
I agree, Medic Dave. Thank you for the call. Maybe someone will call in that can keep listening. Maybe they have the bat line to Trump.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We have a mystery show monitor joining us now. I don't know why, but Tea Party Bob, this could be it for us, so you might as well make it count on KIDO Talk Radio.
What do you mean this could be it for us? What you talking about, boy?
I got somebody here. He just grabbed a set of headphones. He's monitoring, and poor Bo is typing up I don't know if he's typing up his resignation or his report. It ain't looking good, buddy.
You got somebody monitoring me, huh?
Yes, especially you.
Well, you know what?
You're public enemy
really
number
care.
one. You're public enemy number one. That's what I heard.
Yeah, well, I think I'll stay that way. This way people will respect me a little bit more, unlike what's going on in our country. Thanks for bringing Tammy and her husband on this morning. And we live in a different world today where the power and prestige that America once had before Obama and regained with Trump's 4 years, but then again lost and has been diminished even more by the Biden administration in 3 short years. The progressives are hell-bent to turn us into a third-world country. And Kamala and Biden have literally done one heck of a job causing Americans and America itself to bend the knee to these aggressive foreign entities. You just take a look at the 8 million illegals they have allowed to come into our country, sucking us dry and causing more criminal activities than our police can control. This travesty of justice, excuse me, to Tammy and her husband is just one example of how our stature in the world has been harmed by Biden since he was elected. I, for one, would not be going to any foreign countries until I can be sure that our government will do everything in their power to rescue me if I were ever to be arrested by a foreign entity. Just look at how many Americans have been arrested as spies by the Russians, and they had to be traded for real Russian spies. This world is much more dangerous than it was when Trump was in power. And if Trump is not elected, we should all expect this type of treatment to continue and become even more aggressive. Just in the past week, we have seen how Brazil has brought Elon Musk to his knees by cutting X off of that country until he complies with the request to turn off social media. And he has acquiesced. It is just 2 months till the election, and people better wake up, or they're going to find themselves living in a much different life as the progressives continue to push their socialist agendas and programs and continue to bankrupt our country. Kevin, thanks again for your show, and thank you for bringing these two people on. I'm going to probably get this book and read it. I think it's probably worthwhile just to get a little more flavor for what's actually happened there.
A very powerful tale, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to see more of this. Like I said, we don't have the same stature, we don't have the same power, we don't have the same pull. I mean, you've got the Prime Minister of England saying, "Hey, we're going to arrest you if we don't like what you're saying on social media," and I sure wouldn't be going to that country for quite some time until he's out of office. Like I said, the world has become a much more dangerous place than most people can conceive of what is actually happening. Look at what's happening around the South American countries. and Brazil in particular, but also with Maduro down in Venezuela. Things are going crazy. We need somebody back in White House that's going to stop this, and it's not going to be Kamala Harris, that I assure you.
Well, thank you very much for the call.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for your time, and thank you for that story today. We appreciate that. I'm sure all your listeners do.
Well, God bless, old friend.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. By the way,
paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
By the way, if you flew too close to the flame, Bo. I did a little swerve on you, didn't I? Anyway, if you missed the interview with Mayor Tammy and her husband, Jan, you can get that on the podcast, When We Could Not See the Moon. Our daughter locked away in a foreign jail. We had them on last hour. Now we go to our great friend, Ron Grant.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
He was a little too quick on the trigger, Ron.
Yes, he was, and you caught him too.
That's right. And just like you want to catch all those people that may lose their money, obviously keeping it safe is where you are. That's your jurisdiction. You're like the sheriff of safe money.
That's right. Top priority, baby. You know, you work so hard for your money, Kevin. You work, you slave, you put the money away, and you want to make sure that it's safe. And it's not safe in the Wall Street casino. You know, my clients and I sleep at night knowing that we can't lose our principal and we can't lose any of our gains that we've already earned. But the most important thing is we can have a lifetime income that traditional retirement plans just don't offer. And if you're over 50, stop chasing returns. Stop it. Worry about getting that guaranteed lifetime income to take care of you and your family. And that's what I do for my money. That's what I do for my clients. And you know what? On Talk Radio for over 14 and a half years, educating the listeners on how to do it for their money.
Ron, if people want to get some information from you, what can they do?
Information is good. Knowledge is power. That's what we want to do. I've created a great educational website that they can go on 24/7. There's articles there to read. There's videos to take a look at. You can even download a book, 10 Things to Know About Retirement Income. And that's safermoneyspecialist.com. And then let's have a phone conversation right here in the Treasure Valley, how we can help you keep that money that you worked hard for. 208-660-1372.
Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Here he is. We like to call him the Evil Knievel of the Kevin Miller program on KIDO Talk Radio, or Awful Knaffle, Liberal Steve. Memo to Unknown Mystery Monitor. He has his own bumper music that he plays.
I tell you what, Bobby, library has 2 R's in it, Bobby. It's not library. It's library. Library. And for you, Mr. Miller, you and all your right-wing, crazy, out-of-line conservatives better start saying the president's name correctly here in November. It's Kamala.
Wait a minute. I thought the president was
Joe Biden.
Kamala in November.
Kamala?
November, Kamala.
Kamala?
So, and Dunn, we're just referring to Donnie as Dunn.
You're gonna be done, buddy.
You're done, Donnie.
You're done.
And who cares what happens to Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Who cares?
Did you say Elon Musk?
The weirdo, the weirdest guy you ever want to meet.
Have you met him?
I don't even think he should be in the area that he's in. He should be doing something else.
You should hear what people say about you.
Well, what besides your good buddy Twinkle Toes Terry? What do they got to say?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed. Twinkle Toes Terry hasn't given us the usual. Usually he's on you right now.
Oh, he probably forgot to put his CPAP on or something. Who knows?
Hey, man, those are fighting words. You got me on the CPAP.
Dude, Keep you alive, keep you going.
You did.
Keep things happening. But I am fired up because we are so far ahead in the race. But am I going to sit back on my laurels and say we got it made? No.
Is the show over yet?
I'm going to...
Oh, what? We got 11 minutes left?
What?
Usually he calls it the... I'm sorry, the mic's on. What? Yeah.
It's going to be such a landslide. Even crazy Luna Tuna from Idaho is going to go, what the hell just happened? Did we get beat by that millions of people? Good God. And Idaho is probably going to even go blue in November.
Yeah.
There's rumor going around.
I heard, what does that nitwit from Arizona know about Idaho?
Okay, ask me any question about Idaho, I can tell you the answer. Even the speaker didn't even know about Old Joe.
What day did Evel Knievel jump the Snake River Canyon? What date?
Oh, God. I suppose it was sometime in the 70s.
No, the date, the month and the date. It was in the 70s.
Who cares? Somebody that's dumb
That's
enough
what everybody
to
says when people.
across the
That's what
canyon?
people say about you when you call in. Who cares?
Why do people even go to that stuff? I mean, watch somebody jump something, a bunch of cars on a motorcycle, just so he can collect a lot of money and pay for all his broken bones. I don't respect people. I'm like Trump.
Let's see. Please
like
cut
Trump.
the AH off. What a turd.
I like the
Tea Party Bob.
motorcycle guys that make it over the cliff, not the ones that crash.
Is this it? I think you punched yourself out.
Donnie is going to win.
You just said Donnie's going to
Donnie is
win.
gonna win.
Yeah, he's going to win.
Yeah, Donnie.
Donald Trump.
No, that's Dunn Trump.
Kind of like
Donnie
you in
is
this
a
call.
different guy.
Yeah.
All righty. Go easy on me. I just survived a triple bypass. I haven't heard from Doug, that liberal out there out in Mount
No,
Holmes.
Doug survived his.
hippie.
He had some stents put in, so he's doing good.
Well, that's good. He can go around.
As
go out
Bonnie
West
says,
now.
what is this, the hard hour? All you people with your bypasses. She says it's very boring to listen to.
Bonnie?
Yeah.
You better be careful, Bonnie, because I know everything there is to know about you, and I may put up a little flyer outside City Hall that says, "This is the real Bonnie."
Sure.
She's a real lib, and nobody knows it.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Are you ready for it?
Go.
Gazoon type. Phone numbers here, 580-5436-580-KIDO. If you weren't watching Jesse Waters last night because you have a life, Senator Josh Hawley was on with a groundbreaking story. Fox News has been covering it. And, concerning the Secret Service and the training of people and how the Secret Service and the individuals that were there in Butler County, Pennsylvania were trained, or in the case of those folks were not trained. Senator Hawley going on with Jesse Waters with this exclusive report where apparently, if we believe what Senator Hawley has to say, that you're going to love this, that the folks were not even Secret Service agents, that they were from the Department of Homeland Security or something else of that nature. And you think about this and you go, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me when you're thinking about it? Thankfully, we have a story from our friends at Fox News. Let's take a listen.
And not properly trained to protect candidates. Those whistleblowers telling Missouri Senator Josh Hawley that it was Homeland Security agents, not Secret Service agents, who were assigned to work on protective details for former President Trump's Butler, Pennsylvania rally in July. They say the agents were only given a single 2-hour online training to prepare. The training videos were pre-recorded, and some say they were riddled with tech failures. Those whistleblowers say the webinars have still not been updated since the assassination attempt on Trump. Brooke Singman, Fox News.
And when you hear Fox News, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, Senator Hawley.
I was sitting right there in the Senate when he testified that it was a Secret Service counter sniper who neutralized the threat, that is, took out crooks. He said nothing about another sniper, a local, nothing at all.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. And then again, mandatory credit, Jesse Waters, Fox News Radio, KIDO Talk Radio. So Senator Hawley, and like I said, Jesse Waters, I know a lot of people like Jesse. He's got a very unique, charismatic appeal. He doesn't need a guy from Idaho affirming his talent. But I would have liked to have heard more from Hawley, but we had to get to the guy interviewing people at the beach. And I understand that. Fox News trying to get younger, Fox News trying to be relevant, Fox News trying to get hip, and Jesse is the youngest host there. Everybody else, I believe, is in their 50s and late 50s or 60s or what have you. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So Jesse decided to cut away, and then they went to the guy at the beach, and he's talking about Biden and Harris. And, you know, of course, it's scantily clad women, not very much scantily clad men, thankfully. But they were all, you know, doing stupid things. But Josh Hawley, along with Senator Cotton, Senator Hawley, Senator Cotton, two of the most young conservative senators that we should all be proud of. And again, thank you, Senator Risch. Thank you, Senator Crapo, Congressman Fulcher, Congressman Simpson as well. But this is why we need a Republican Senate, a Republican House. So Josh Hawley saying that, and getting the description, it's funny, I can't find the Jesse Waters clip, but Josh Hawley breaking it down that, okay, they couldn't get any Secret Service agents to protect the president or the former president. They couldn't get anybody. So, okay, you're going to watch a film. Like, remember, and to the younger broadcast executive monitor, in the days of the old people, like your parents or grandparents, we had these things called film strips. What's that, Bo? You read about film strips where you would turn the thing and go beep, and they had a department, not a video or digital department. We called it audio visual. And so we would, and it was almost like a film strip where they go beep, and you'd literally turn the film. And that was before we had these marvelous things called VCRs, and then digital, and everything else is, you know, CDs, and now it's, you know, everything's streaming. However, you're the United States Secret Service, and the best thing that you can do is to have a training tape with people that aren't qualified to protect the former president. That would explain it. And by the way, again, the myth from the United States Secret Service. Now, if Kevin Miller had accomplished anything in life, I can remember, don't tell anybody. Maybe you can relate to this story. Do you remember having dreams? I can remember having dreams. And I always dreamed that I would be Chuck Norris. You know, can you see it? No, Kevin. I see Chris Farley. I see John Candy, but I don't see Chuck Norris. Yeah, you have to dream a little, okay? So I always love Chuck Norris. I'm going to hit you with so many lefts, you're going to beg for a right. It worked for him. It really never worked for me. However, I wanted to be Chuck Norris, or I wanted to be a police officer. I had dreams. And one of those dreams was to be a police officer and to be a member of the United States Secret Service. I thought it was great. And I thought it was, duty, God, and country. So immense respect for the people that serve our country and protect our president and make sure the counterfeit money doesn't take over. You have to be at the highest levels. And are you telling me, as Josh Hawley said last night on Fox News on KIDO Talk Radio, that apparently they showed him a film strip? Now, I know it wasn't a film strip and it was buffering. This is the best that we can do? My goodness gracious, as we've talked about before, imagine the Republic falling and we're all going, oh, we've got Kamala screaming and yelling and going, y'all better like the union people. This is real life serious business, Senator Hawley.
I was sitting right there in the Senate when he testified that it was a Secret Service counter sniper who neutralized the threat, that is, took out crooks. He said nothing about another sniper, a local, nothing at all.
Yeah, so the guy in Butler County, Pennsylvania, by the way, that's the county I used to live in, not that you care, before I moved to Ada County, very much like our people in Idaho. Not big city, nothing fancy, but they're the guys that apparently took out the killer. And oh, by the way, props to the Daily Wire through another publication called the Tennessee Star. And I know Clay Travis is going to talk about this next hour because he lives in Nashville. The trans woman or trans man, yes, it was a woman that wanted to be a man. What do they call that? The manifesto has been released by an online publication called the Tennessee Star. They don't care if people are going to see it or not. Now, again, if it had been a racial attack where a white person did something bad, we'd have the manifesto everywhere. The shocking manifesto of this very mentally disturbed person that killed 6 little Christian kids in a school, it needs to be exposed. Shame on the media for not giving us that information. Thankfully, Clay Travis will have that for us coming up next hour. Coming up tomorrow, I believe we have the crime-fighting attorney general with a very special guest all about keeping your kids safe from internet predators. He is headlining the program tomorrow. And yes, we'll have our friend Kent Goldthorpe when we can find him, and much, much more information. Once again, everybody, thank you for listening. God bless. Kaye Milley loves you. Keep the